Chapter 630. In the end, these people were forced to drink muddy water to maintain their breathing. After all, there was still oxygen in the water. Even the purest Xian Qi cultivation couldn't last for 7 days and 7 nights without breathing. When they were dug out, 7 of them were left with their last breaths. They had fallen into a deep coma, and each of them had multiple fractures on their bodies. They didn't even have the strength to move their eyes. The last person had been dead for a long time. His body had been bitten into pieces, and there wasn't even a single piece of flesh left. Everyone lowered their heads in misery when they saw this tragic scene. It was obvious that there wasn't anything to eat underground. So, the unlucky guy who had died first had become food for everyone else. After a few days, these people had finally recovered a little. The first thing they did after waking up was to vomit non-stop. Moreover, they had committed a mental illness from then on. Eating the flesh and blood of their own brothers. What kind of feeling is this? This kind of horrifying feeling was enough to make these people remember it until the end of time. Jun Moxie had exhausted his spiritual power to trigger the landslide. After he came out, he had practically relied on Chu Chihuan to carry him all the way. But even so, Chu Chihuan was still very happy. When he saw that place suddenly collapse, it was as comfortable as jumping into a frozen river on a hot day. When he saw 2 mountain peaks collapse at the same time, Chu Chihuan even forgot to be shocked. At that moment, he only wanted to sing. It was too cool, too fucking cool. Who asked you to chase after me indiscriminately and try to kill me? Now, I'm suffering from retribution, right? Just based on this point alone, not to mention carrying Jun Imo Xia for a short period of time, even if he had to carry Jun Imo Xia for a lifetime, he would be willing. More than 10 days passed, and the road could be said to be extremely peaceful. The city walls of Tianxiang City could be faintly seen in front of them. Jun Moxie's spiritual power had already been restored. But, he was still clinging to Chu Chihuan's back, and wouldn't come down no matter what. Damn it! Once I come down, this guy will turn around and run away. Who can I look for? However, Chu Chihuan was still Chu Chihuan. Even though Jun Moxie had shown great sincerity, he still only stayed at the Jun residence for 2 days, and then left. He was like a lonely wolf who would never have too much time to rest. Perhaps, those days of wandering and those thrilling moments were what Chu Chihuan was really pursuing. I'm originally a rootless duckweed. I'm used to this kind of life, and I don't want to have roots. We are fated to meet today, but we may not be able to meet again in the future. Before leaving, Chu Chihuan had a long talk with Jun Moxie and said, "We are all real killers, and we know our hearts. My identity will always be a killer, and this will never change. I like these days, and I like the feeling of wandering everywhere. I go. I like it. So, I'm leaving. I'm very happy that I have the fate to meet you, the king of killers. But, it's a pity that your identity means that you can't be a real killer. So, although your strength can be said to be the king of our profession, and no one has the right to object, you have to remember your identity. You are not a killer. I am. So, I'm very sorry for my departure. I know what you want. I have a disciple, and I will arrange for him to find you later. I believe you should have an impression of him, because he tried to assassinate you before. I hope you can forget about it and treat him well. Although I'm just a killer, I'm also a teacher. As for the 3 Holy Lands pursuit, I don't really care. Because I'm being hunted every day. It's just that the starting point of this pursuit is slightly higher. Maybe this time, it will be difficult for me to escape the 3 Holy Lands pursuit. But, hiding and running away is not my, Chu Chihuan's, style. I'm the king of killers. Even if I have to die, I should be killed by others, and not die peacefully of old age. I'd rather be stained with blood than live an ignoble life. This is my pride, and I believe you understand. If I'm lucky enough to survive, and feel tired, I think I'll come here to rest for a while, and then I'll start my journey again. These were Chu Chihuan's words. Jun Moxie understood and admired him, and even envied him. Crossing the world with a sword, repaying kindness and enmity, brushing the clothes, sweeping the world with a sword. Traveling thousands of miles, lonely sword against the morning wind, dreaming of the ocean, laughing, waking up with blood-red clothes. Gratitude and enmity must be unsheathed. Life and death have nothing to do with feelings. Tender heart lingers on the sea, loyal heart illuminates the sea. I'll be free and unfettered, heaven and earth leave no trace, the cold moon follows the lonely shadow, withered branches sweep the cold wind. This was Jun Moxi's dream life. But in this life, his identity meant that this dream could never be realized. And what Chu Chihuan said was right. Although he was the king of killers, he could not appear as a killer. Killer, this long-lost title, only belonged to his previous life. In this life, he was Jun Moxi. The battle with Chu Chihuan and winning the glory of the king of killers had already proved that he was the evil monarch. But it was just a proof, although it was enough. So, Jun Moxi did not ask Chu Chihuan to stay. Or, from another point of view, Chu Chihuan's wandering in the Jianghu seemed to have continued Jun Moxi's dream of being a killer in the Jianghu. Being able to have someone who had the same dream as him, and live like this, could be considered as fulfilling his dream. Before Chu Chihuan left, Jun Moxi gave him 3 elixirs: Vitality Linkage Elixir, Vitality Gathering Elixir, and Heaven Vitality Elixir. Then, he gave Chu Chihuan 2 bottles of elixirs that he had carefully refined. One bottle was for internal injuries, which could recover even the most serious internal injuries in a short time. Even if it was a disease that could not be cured by medicine like qi deviation, it could alleviate and regulate it. The other bottle was for knife wounds, which had a magical effect on external injuries, and could almost bring the dead back to life. After knowing the uses of these 3 elixirs and the 2 bottles of medicine for internal and external injuries, Chu Chihuan did not speak for a long time. There was no joy on his face. Instead, it was full of disappointment, which was actually a kind of powerless struggle. I, Chu Chihuan, have never owed anyone a favor in my life. This has always been my proudest point, and also the biggest foundation of my straightforwardness. But, your gift this time is too heavy for me to bear. But, I know that it is difficult for me to refuse, and I don't want to refuse. I owe you a lot. I owe you a life for the Blizzard Tavern, I owe you a favor for the ambush in the Slanting Valley, I owe you a favor for the 1,000-mile escape, and now, I owe you so many elixirs. I am very unhappy. If there is a chance, I will repay this favor. But, the debt of a favor is the most difficult to repay. I am afraid that I will never be able to repay it in this lifetime. So, I never owe you anything. Chu Chihuan left. He floated away in a carefree and unrestrained manner. He left without any worries, and didn't even look back. Resolute and unrestrained. He only left a few words. After saying this, he turned around and left, and didn't look back again. The day that you wield your sword in the snowstorm will be the day that I draw my sword in the Silver City. These 3 bottles of elixirs, I will take them as my reward. Although you may not think so, but, I have never owed anyone anything, and I don't want to owe you anything. Jun Moxi was silent. After Chu Chihuan left, Mei Shuiyan also bade farewell to Jun Moxi. She wanted to cooperate with the Snake King to return to Tian Fa and prepare for the upcoming battle. Similarly, when Mei Shuiyan returned again, it would be the time for everyone to lead the army to Blizzard's Silver City. If there were no accidents, the 3 Holy Lands would also intervene in the Battle of Blizzard's Silver City. So, when Mei Shuiyan returned this time, she was going to mobilize the army. She left with Jun Moxi's many elixirs. When she returned again, it would be a brand new Tian Fa. Tian Fa's glory days were just around the corner. No matter who obstructed my path of vengeance, no matter who it is, I will crush them without mercy. With absolute strength, I will destroy them in one battle. This time, I will wield my sword in the Silver City, not only for vengeance, but also for intimidation. Because Jun Moxi not only wanted to kill the Shao family, he also wanted to collapse the snowy peak of the sword. He must create a shocking sensation, to shock the entire Xian continent. Revenge for the Jun family. Revenge for my father. Revenge for my mother. Revenge for my uncle. Revenge for my brother. More importantly, I will use this opportunity to remove the shackles of the oath of the Dongfang family. With the Shao family as a stepping stone, I will announce to the world that the Jun family is rising. The rise of Jun Moxie. No one can stop me, absolutely no one can stop me. At that moment, the path of glory of the otherworldly evil monarch will truly begin. When Mei Shuyan left, her eyes were full of reluctance. Finally, after a gentle hug, she floated away. The Qian Sun Serpent Queen's eyes were red, as if she had been crying. When she left, she did not even look at Jun Moxie. No one knew if it was because she did not dare to look, or if it was something else. The return of Dongfang Wenxin brought great joy to the Jun family. When he saw his brother-in-law, Jun Wui, whose face was full of shame, Dongfang Wenxin said, "Third brother, you don't need to be ashamed, and you don't need to blame yourself too much. Not to mention that you are not at fault in this matter. Even if you are at fault, so what? Brothers are one. If this happened to me and Wu Hui, then the innocent one who would suffer would be you. And we would also be sad. You only need to think of the whole thing from your brother's point of view, and you will understand what your brother means. You will always be our most beloved little brother. If you really feel sorry for your brother, then live with dignity, and live proudly for your brother." Jun Wui held back his tears and went back with red eyes. This proud and unyielding blood general knelt in front of Jun Wuhui and Jun Wuming's memorial tablets for the whole night, his head covered with frost. But now, the knot in his heart was finally undone. Dongfang Wenxin was also very satisfied with the two daughters-in-law, Guan Qinghan and Dugu Xiaoyi. Guan Qinghan's strength and her temperament, which was like a plum blossom in the snow, made Dongfang Wenxin admire her greatly. He especially admired Guan Qinghan's persistence, stubbornness, and aloofness, which made Dongfang Wenxin feel like he saw himself in the past. Also, Guan Qinghan's music and calligraphy were extraordinary, and she had a lot in common with Dongfang Wenxin. So when the two of them were together, they complemented each other. Chapter 631. After Chu Chihuan left, Jun Moxie waited for Chu Chihuan's disciple. He was looking forward to it. Ever since he came to this world, he had only encountered one assassination attempt, and it was that lightning-like strike outside the imperial city. Since then, there had been no news or traces of that assassin. He had completely disappeared, as if he did not exist in this world. Even if Jun Moxie wanted to investigate, he had no way of finding out. However, there had always been a doubt in his heart. Only now did he know that he was actually Chu Chihuan's disciple. Thinking of that fellow's extremely fast movement and sword skills, Jun Moxie had a feeling that if this fellow was trained well, his future achievements would definitely be higher than Chu Chihuan's. So Jun Moxie was really looking forward to it. In the short term, there was nothing else to do. Right now, the main goal was to train the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer. Under Jun Moxie's relentless use of medicinal pills and spirit medicines, and under the torturous training of Solitary Eagle and Feng Wanyun, the strength of the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer soared like a rocket. 300 people continuously jumped levels, and many of them had already reached the peak of Earth Xian. Just one more step, and they would be able to take the 3 great medicinal pills of Jun Moxie and soar again. At that time, the strength of the Jun family could only be described as terrifying. Everything was ready. Originally, using this kind of extremely cruel method to increase one's strength and push one's potential to the limit was not the right way. In essence, it was basically an act of drinking poison to quench one's thirst. The members of the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer might be able to greatly increase their strength in a short period of time, but there was no room for further growth. In fact, because of this extreme training, their lifespan would be greatly depleted, and they could die at any time. However, Jun Moxie had an endless supply of prescriptions and heavenly treasures in his hands, so they didn't have to worry about such things at all. With enough elixirs as a foundation, and with some recuperation, it would only take a few days at most to replenish all the vitality they had lost, and they could even grow a lot. As a result, all the members gradually got used to this extremely cruel training cycle. Other than the harsh training of the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer, the June family was very peaceful and even warm. In the following days, June Moxie tried his best to relax and enjoy this peaceful life to the fullest. He was reluctant to part with these unforgettable days. Because once war broke out once more, then such peaceful days would probably be difficult to find in the future. All the information came flying like snowflakes, conveying the same message: they had not found the location of the Blood Sword Hall. The Blood Sword Hall, the most terrifying assassin organization of the Xian continent, seemed to have disappeared from this world in a single night, without a trace. All the information about them could no longer be found. Not even the slightest trace could be found. For a terrorist organization with such an illustrious reputation, this phenomenon was extremely unreasonable. However, June Moxie didn't think that there was anything unreasonable about it. The June family had risen so powerfully, and the enemy was also a very bold person. How could they not cut off their losses? If they were still able to find traces of the Blood Sword Hall, then that would be really unreasonable. In these days, June Moxie often climbed up the tower, and at night, he would stare in the direction of the Imperial Palace for a long time. June Moxie was very clear that the man in the Imperial Palace definitely knew everything that had happened here. There were many times when June Moxie almost wanted to directly rush into the Imperial Palace, capture that man, and then use hypnosis to force him to tell the truth. However, June Moxie wasn't willing to do that. It wasn't that he couldn't, but, if he were to obtain the truth like this, then it would be too easy for him. The price of the June family's hatred was his cheap life. How could it be repaid? In this world, there are many things that are more painful than death, and I look forward to using the rest of my life to properly taste them. An excessively calm day was often the calm before the storm. On this day, June Moxie slowly walked through the pure white snow into the small courtyard where Guanqing Han lived alone. The white snow was flawless, and it looked like it was wrapped in silver. June Moxie was dressed in a light blue robe, and the snow-white fox fur collar contrasted with his handsome face, red lips, white teeth, sword-like eyebrows, and starry eyes. His figure was tall and slender, and his handsomeness was pressing. He was the standard of a handsome and elegant young man. Naturally, it would be even more perfect if there wasn't a touch of evil between his eyebrows. June Dashao's footsteps were leisurely as he floated over, as if he was riding the wind and treading on the moon, his feet unstained by the dust. There were a total of 4 women sitting in a pavilion in the courtyard, and they couldn't help but stare at him as he walked in. Dongfang Wen Xian's eyes flashed with pride. "This is my son, what an outstanding character." Dugu Xiaoi jumped up with a "wow," and said with a charming smile, "Brother Mo Xia, you are so handsome." Han Yan Meng turned her head, and her eyes also lit up, and she said in an old-fashioned manner, "Sister-in-law, this son of yours is not bad-looking." Her sister, Han Yan Yao, and Jun Wui were in love with each other, so naturally, her status rose, and she called Dongfang Wen Xian's sister-in-law, just like Jun Wui. However, it was really ridiculous for a 16 or 17-year-old girl to speak in such a tone of seniority. Only Guanqing Han had her head lowered, and her brows furrowed, as if she was thinking hard about something. She held a pen in her hand, and was constantly drawing and writing. It seemed as if all her attention was focused on the white paper in front of her, and she didn't notice June Moxie's arrival at all. June Moxie walked over to take a look, and saw that the white paper was filled with symbols. It turned out that Guanqing Han was composing a song. "What song is this?" June Moxie asked. Sister Qing Han has been spending a lot of time with Auntie recently, and she often hears about Uncle and Auntie's affairs. She was so touched by their affection that she vowed to compose a song to commemorate their sincere friendship. "I just finished it, and I played it once just now. It sounds very touching, but I still feel that something is wrong, so I changed it again." Dugu Xiaoyi smiled mischievously. The little girl was dressed in a light yellow robe, a small leather cotton-padded jacket, and a pair of small boots. There were 2 snow-white round pom-poms on them. She looked like the most delicate doll, and was very lovable. "Oh, let me have a look." June Moxie walked over and stared at it. You know music? The four women looked at him in surprise, and their faces were full of surprise. I only know a thing or two, it's not very elegant. June Moxie touched his nose, and said modestly. Looking at Guan Qinghan's music score, he tried to hum it, and shook his head, and said, No, no, your song is too sad. Father and mother are chivalrous, and heroes and beauties complement each other. Although they are separated from each other, this true love will forever exist in the world, and no obstacles can stop it. It's a story of a generation, and it's not just a story of those silly men and women. Your music score may be able to make people cry, but it doesn't show the most beautiful true love, and it's difficult to arouse the greatest recognition of everyone. This can be said to be the biggest failure. Guan Qinghan said in a daze, I also thought of this reason, and it's because I found this problem just now that I started to change it. But no matter how I changed, I always felt that I couldn't grasp the essence, and even felt that the more I changed, the worse it got. June Moxie looked up at the sky, and thought for a while, and said, Let me try. As he said that, he put away Guan Qinghan's piece of white paper, and laid down another one. He took the pen from Guan Qinghan's hand, and stood in front of the table, and was deep in thought, like an old monk in meditation. Dongfang Wenxin couldn't help but laugh, thinking that her son was playing a trick, and looked at June Moxie with great interest. Dugu Xiaoyi and Han Yen Meng also looked like they were watching a good show, waiting for June Moxie to make a fool of himself, so that they could tease and humiliate him. But only Guan Qinghan knew that June Moxie knew music, and his attainment in it was quite high, and she was the only one who looked serious and expectant. After a long while, June Moxie let out a long breath, and suddenly moved the pen like it was flying. One by one, the musical symbols that belonged to this world appeared on the white paper, but what they brought was a melody from another world. There was no hesitation, and it was done in one go. Guan Qinghan took the song, and tried to hum a few lines, and suddenly, her eyes lit up, and she opened her eyes wide in disbelief, thinking carefully again. After what seemed like a long time, Guan Qinghan slowly took out a jade flute from her sleeves, and put it to her lips. Her beautiful eyes stared at June Moxie's music score, and her mouth opened slightly, and the sound of the flute rang out. The sound of the flute was especially deep, and it was full of deep emotion. The song was full of the interpretation of true love, and also a strong sense of melancholy and helplessness, as well as the endless yearning for such a sincere love. This song was like a dream. A dream about love that everyone yearned for the most, an ethereal yet real dream. June Xie silently closed his eyes. His right hand gently tapped the beat in response to the tune Guan Qinghan was playing. It seemed as if he was enjoying it. In fact, it seemed as if he was immersed in this once familiar music. Dongfang, Wen Xian, and the other two suddenly heard such a beautiful music, and they were surprised at first, but then they couldn't help but immerse themselves in it. Such a beautiful and touching song had never appeared in this world. Even the most beautiful music had its end. When the song ended, Guan Qinghan stood there with the jade flute in her hand, and looked at the composer June Moxie in disbelief. Although she knew that he was familiar with music, she still couldn't believe it, and even more couldn't believe that he could create such a heavenly sound so casually. It's really beautiful. Dugu Xiaoyi opened her eyes, and said with some nostalgia, I've never heard such a soulful song before. If it could be sung with lyrics, it would definitely be very nice. June Xie smiled faintly. He then picked up the brush, and wrote the lyrics of the song under the score. He said, This song, let's call it Song of No Regrets. He sighed in his heart, in this world, there is no 3 plays of Plum Blossom after all. The four surrounded him, and slowly recited. There are infatuated people in the world of mortals. Don't be too infatuated. If not for the bone-chilling cold, the fragrance of plum blossoms. What is love in the world? What is love in the world? How many stories in the world? The most ecstatic song of no regrets. There is one thing that I would like to ask of you. I don't want to see any comments or insults about other authors in my book review section. I hope you can calm down. Only writers know the hardships and tiredness of being a writer, and how much effort they put in. Everyone works hard to make a living, and no one has it easy. I hope you can understand. I hope that the readers of Xie Jun can be as proud as our Xie Jun Moxie. I hope that one day when you comment on us, you will say, the readers of Xie Jun are a group of people with good qualities. That will be my proudest thing. Chapter 632. Worldly Affairs, Infatuation. Dugu Xiaoyi sang the lyrics along with the music score. On the other side, Guan Qinghan's flute sounded again. Along with Dugu Xiaoyi's singing, the flute's gentle sound complemented each other. When the song ended, everyone could still feel the lingering sound. It was not an exaggeration to say that the melody lingered in the air for 3 days. What is love in the world? It makes people live and die for each other. Dongfang Wenxin suddenly shed tears and murmured, "What is love? What is love? Is love something that tortures people?" Jun Moxie sighed and recited slowly, "What is love in the world? It makes people live and die for each other. Two travelers from all over the world, old wings fly back to winter and summer, joy is fun, parting is bitter, and there are infatuated children. You should have a saying, 10,000 miles of clouds, 1,000 mountains in the evening snow, only shadow goes to whom?" When Dongfang Wen Xian heard this poem, it was as if she had fallen into a trance. She chewed on every word, pondering over the meaning within. She stood there in a daze, and suddenly, her eyes filled with tears, slowly falling to the ground. She turned around and ran back to her room, only to hear a sorrowful cry. Juning Ying's words, 10,000 li of clouds, 1,000 mountains of snow at dusk, to whom does the shadow go? No regrets. No regrets. You want me to be alone. How am I going to face the wind and rain of the world? Mo Xia, do you think Auntie, will she? Guan Qinghan asked Jun Moxie quietly. Her tone was full of worry and reproach. Obviously, she blamed Jun Moxie for making Dongfang Wenxin sad. Jun Mo Xia sighed deeply and said, "Mother has been suppressing her grief and putting on a smile during this period of time. Forcing herself to smile is simply too tiring. If she keeps holding it in for too long, it will really cause problems. You know, emotions are like a torrent, it's better to let it flow than to block it. Might as well let her touch her heart and let it all out. As long as she can cry, it will be much easier after that." Guan Qinghan, Dugu Xiaoyi, and Han Yen Meng nodded in realization. Amidst the silence, a beautiful flute sound rose once again. It spread in all directions leisurely, and it did not stop. It was the song No Regrets, asking the world, what is love? In a small courtyard separated by a wall, another infatuated person, Yi Guhan, stood under a flowering tree. He looked even more haggard than before. He let the snow on the flowering tree tremble and slide down his head and neck, but he seemed to not feel it at all. He only listened to the song with infatuation. His empty left sleeve fluttered in the cold wind. Yi Guhan's face was bitter. His eyes were deep and filled with pain. His expression was bleak and lonely. He murmured, "Ask the world, what is love? Xiao, are you okay?" When Jun Moxie left, Guan Qinghan and Dugu Xiaoyi were studying the song. But Han Yen Meng followed him out. "Jun Moxie, nephew Mo Xia, when do you plan to go to Blizzard Silver City?" Han Yen Meng pouted and looked at him. "Blizzard Silver City? What for?" Jun Moxie was stunned, "That place is far away and cold. I have no interest in going there." When he heard nephew Mo Xia, Jun Dashao felt that it was a little harsh. But his mother and third uncle had already made the decision. He had no room to argue. How could he let this little girl bully him? "You!" Han Yen Meng was angry, "What about the Xiao family? Don't you want to take revenge?" "Why wouldn't I want to? But the Xiao family is also the enemy of your Han family, and it's the kind of life and death enmity where only one of them dies. In terms of urgency, I'm definitely not the first to bear the brunt." Jun Mo Xia spread out his hands and said, "It's not like you don't know that the Xiao family is very powerful, and their influence is even more enormous. So, It's only natural that they leave it to you, who are equally strong, to deal with them. So, we'll wait for you to start fighting, and then we'll sneak over and bring your sister out to reunite with my third uncle. As for other matters, I'm really powerless. But our Blizzard Silver City will be completely destroyed. The little girl was so anxious that she almost cried. She bit her lips and looked at June Moxie. Then, she stamped her feet and said, How can you be so heartless? I'm heartless. How did you come to that conclusion? June Moxie felt wronged and said, The so-called heartless is built on the basis of an intimate relationship, right? I don't seem to have much of a relationship with your Han family, right? Even from my third uncle's point of view, I should indeed go. But when I think about it carefully, I'm really unwilling. Let's not talk about anything else. Even if my father, second uncle, and my two brothers died that day, none of them had anything to do with your Blizzard Silver City. Even if the Shao family did it, your Han family wouldn't have known about it, right? At least you would have connived with it. From what standpoint are you saying that I'm heartless? It was indeed wrong of us to have connived with the Shao family. But, shouldn't we be united against a common enemy? You're saying that you're not reconciled? Han Yen Meng's eyes lit up. You have conditions? If you have conditions, then tell me. How will I know if you don't tell me? How will I help you if I don't know? Tell me your conditions, and I'll know. June Moxie's face turned bitter. Elder sister, don't beat around the bush. My head is already 3 times bigger than before. If it gets any bigger, it'll explode. Then, June Dashao said with some reluctance, I think you've already planned it. I'll go to the Blizzard Silver City, and kill the Shao family. Then, I'll help my third uncle get a wife. Then, I'll help your Blizzard Silver City get rid of any future troubles. Third uncle and third aunt will be happy from then on. The Blizzard Silver City will flourish, and there won't be any internal troubles. Everyone will be happy. Is this your plan? You're an elder. You're really astute and far-sighted. But, what about me? You'll get everything. What will I get in the end? I don't think I'll get anything. My third uncle will at least get a beauty. But, I won't even get a single hair. Would you be willing to suffer such a loss? Then, how about I introduce a few sisters to you in the Blizzard Silver City? But, whether you can succeed or not depends on your ability. That should be fine, right? The little girl bit her lips and said in a resolute manner. No, no. What kind of condition is this? My third uncle married a princess of the Blizzard Silver City. You want to use a few maids to get rid of me? Isn't the gap too big? June Moxie said indignantly, no matter what, their status should be about the same, right? My third uncle married a princess, and I'm marrying a maid. Isn't this too degrading for me? About the same status? Han Yen Meng opened her big round eyes and said in a confused manner, but, there's no more, how come there's no more? June Moxie frowned and pretended to be unhappy. Then, he said patiently, there's at least one more, there's another one. Who? The little girl frowned and thought hard for a while. She looked down at her toes and thought for a while. Then, she looked up at the sky and thought for a while. She looked very pained and confused. Then, she stretched out her 10 fingers, and counted them one by one. After a long while, she finally said with certainty, there's really no more. There's absolutely no more. I've counted several times. There's really no more. Are you sure? June Moxie looked at her with some dissatisfaction. You can't lie to me. This concerns the future of the Blizzard Silver City. I'm not lying. I'll be a puppy if I lie to you. There's really no more. The little girl pointed to the sky and swore, I swear. If there's really a suitable person, if there's really a suitable one. You'll what? Don't tell me that you'll tie her up and send her to me. June Moxie said in a very persuasive manner. That's right. If there's really such a person, I'll tie her up and send her to you. I'll go all out for the future of the Blizzard Silver City. But, what if there's really no more? The little Lolita spoke in a righteous manner. She had a triumphant expression on her face as she looked at June Emosia proudly. In fact, it seemed as if her evil plan had succeeded. Then, she chuckled and said, "If you really don't have them, then you should quickly go to the Silver City and help us kill those traitors." Good. It's a deal. If there's a suitable person in the Blizzard Silver City with the same status as your sister, then tie her up and send her to me to be my concubine. If there isn't, then I'll just treat it as a good deed. I'll help the Blizzard Silver City destroy the Shao family. Moreover, I won't mention any additional conditions. June Moxie said seriously, "It's a deal. We'll clap our hands as a vow. We can't go back on our words. Do you dare to make this bet?" "Why wouldn't I dare?" The little girl laughed happily. "Speaking of the Blizzard Silver City's affairs, do you think you're clearer than me? If I say there's no more, then there's no more. Clap our hands as a vow. Hurry up." She was even more delighted in her heart. Uncle Moo said that this June Moxie was very cunning. But, it seems that he's just a fool now. Not to mention that there's no suitable candidate. Even if there is one, it'll be up to us. If we say there's no more, then there's no more. I'll go back and tell Uncle Moo about this good news. The little girl was afraid that June Moxie would go back on his words. So, she couldn't wait to stretch out her smooth and tender palm in front of June Moxie. She shook it repeatedly. It was obvious that she wanted to seal this big deal. She was trying hard to remind herself to be calm and steady. But, she couldn't control herself. Her heart was full of pride. Her big clear eyes had almost turned into crescent moons. Waha! I've gotten a big bargain this time. You'll be my concubine as long as there's a suitable candidate. You won't regret it. June Moxie obviously didn't trust her. This made Han Yen Meng very angry. She bared her fangs and brandished her claws. She roared in a low voice, "I mean what I say. I'll be your concubine if there's one. I'll bear witness to this matter. I can't be wrong. You're such a big man. Hurry up and clap our hands as a vow." Clap our hands as a vow. No, I still have to think about it. June Moxie had just stretched out his hand when he suddenly retracted it. He looked at Han Yen Meng suspiciously. "Why does it seem like a trap? Why do I smell a conspiracy? Moreover, wouldn't I suffer a great loss if you don't keep your word?" The little girl jumped 3 feet high. She had gone mad. She bared her fangs and brandished her claws in anger. "Do you think I'll go back on my word? Me? Humph. I'm telling you that I, Han Yen Meng, always keep my word. I've never gone back on my word. Humph, I swear on the Silver Blizzard City's supreme reputation to show my sincerity. If I don't keep my word, and I can't fulfill my promise, then let me, this ant will take off my clothes and walk around the Tianxiang city. It's a deal." June Moxie's eyes lit up. Chapter 633. Paw! 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 June Moxie had just raised his hand when Han Yen Meng quickly slapped his palm 3 times. She was laughing happily like a cat that had stolen a fish. She was winking and looking very pleased with herself. "You're finished," the little girl announced with a cackle. "I'm telling you now, you're going to lose." "How can that be?" June Moxie looked at the little girl who had sold herself out and was still helping others earn money. He said confidently, "How can I lose?" "Humph, you won't lose. The person you want doesn't exist. Today, little Aunt Han will teach your nephew Mo Xia a lesson. This matter doesn't belong to you. If I say there's no such person, then there's no such person. Do you understand now?" The little loli looked up to the sky and laughed wildly. "How can there be no such person? There must be a suitable candidate. How can there be no such person? Because there are 2 princesses of the Silver Blizzard City, right?" Jun Mo Xia crossed his arms and laughed sinisterly. Apart from your sister, isn't there also you, little Aunt Han? Did I see wrongly? Are you a young master of the Silver Blizzard City? Not a woman? You're not a woman. Ah. Ah, what did you say? Me? I. Han Yen Meng retorted reflexively. Suddenly, she was tongue-tied. She covered her mouth with her hand. Her complacent smile froze on her face. The next moment it was replaced by a panic-stricken expression. She had actually forgotten to count herself. Perhaps it should be said that Han Yen Meng had never considered that she was one of the candidates. Miss Han, you must know who the suitable candidate I was talking about is? Then, please hurry up and tie up the woman that I want. In other words, my concubine, and send her to my room. Jun Moxie said seriously, this is a matter that concerns the reputation of the Silver Blizzard City. I hope you can do it as soon as possible. I believe that you can do it. Because you, Miss Han, have always kept your promises. Han Yen Meng's face darkened. Her fingers trembled, and the expression in her eyes fluctuated. Suddenly, she remembered to blush. She rolled her eyes and pondered for a long time. Then, she suddenly clutched her stomach and said with a pained expression, why does my stomach suddenly hurt? I have to go back and rest. Why does it hurt so much? Then, she bent her waist and walked away dejectedly. Miss Han, it doesn't matter if your stomach hurts, but don't forget about my concubine. Big brother is still waiting. The binding method. Jun Moxie loudly reminded her from behind, but Han Yen Meng turned a deaf ear to him. She slipped away like a wisp of smoke and disappeared without a trace. Little guy, who asked you to act like an elder in front of me every day? Is it so easy to be this young master's elder? I'm not going to teach you a lesson. You really don't know what restraint is, and what it means to quit while you're ahead. Jun Moxie's heart felt very comfortable. There was no need to mention that feeling of pleasure. Now, let's see how this lass would face him. I've been suppressing my anger for a few days, and I can finally vent it out, A burst of laughter rang out. Jun Wui flashed out from the side. He clutched his stomach, and laughed with a pained expression on his face. It was obvious that he had been suppressing his anger for a long time. As he laughed, he gave a thumbs up, Mo Xia. You're really amazing. You made this lass sell herself. Third uncle really has to give it to you today. You're too overbearing. Jun Moxie touched his nose, and said with a mischievous smile, Third uncle, isn't this the only way? This lass has been acting like an elder in front of me for the past few days. She keeps calling me nephew Mo Xia. What do you think I should do? This time, I reckon she'll be well behaved for a while. I'm afraid she won't be well behaved for a while. Jun Wui laughed loudly, I reckon this lass won't be able to raise her head in front of you from now on. She won't even dare to take a picture with you. Mo Xia, I say. Don't tell me you've really fallen for this lass. No way. Jun Moxie shook his head violently, Third uncle, please spare me. Don't randomly matchmake a couple, I already have quite a few. Humph. Jun Wui laughed meaningfully, and reminded him, you two are really not a good match. After all, there's a seniority gap between the two of you. How can you be considered a suitable candidate? Third Master Jun swaggered off after he finished speaking. I didn't say anything, and you're already planning for your sister-in-law. Besides, Yanghua is married to her master. What's the difference in seniority? Jun Moxie muttered, and felt a little guilty. Suddenly, someone came to report, Young master, someone is asking to see you. He said that his master asked him to come. Let him in. Jun Moxie perked up. He's finally here. This brat really gave me a fright that time. I want to take a closer look and see what kind of character he is. Young Master Jun, the person who appeared in front of Jun Moxie was a young man, at most 24 or 25 years old. Not only was he thin, but he was also not tall. According to Jun Moxie's judgment, this lad was at most 1.6 meters tall. But his whole body was unusually coordinated. "What's your name? Did you assassinate me some time ago? Are you Chu Chihuan's disciple?" Jun Moxie stared at the young man in front of him. The young man seemed a little reserved and a little dull, but his eyes were as rigid as the eyes of a dead fish, as if they could not move at all. Wherever he looked, it was as if he was looking at a dead object. "Yes." The young man straightened his chest, and there was still no fluctuation in his eyes. "My name is Ling Ao." Ling Ao, a very imposing name. Jun Moxie smiled faintly. Suddenly, his body leaned forward, and his eyes turned cold in an instant. Like a flash of lightning across the sky, an extremely overbearing aura mixed with a domineering murderous aura covered him with a boom, without any warning. The murderous aura surged like a raging tide, like countless swords wreaking havoc in the air. Several guards at the door only sensed a slight aura, and they sat on the ground in a daze, their faces instantly pale. Ling Ao's dead eyes flashed a sincere shock in an instant, and he was horrified. He tried his best to resist Jun Moxie's aura, trying to fight back, but found that everything was in vain. He had no room to resist. One moment, only one moment. His whole body, his whole soul had been swallowed up, and his whole body became cold. "That time, who asked you to kill me?" Jun Moxie asked word by word. Ling Ao raised his head stubbornly. Lang looked at him, but had no intention of speaking at all. He bit the tip of his tongue hard, hoping to keep the last trace of clarity. Blood inevitably flowed down from the corner of his mouth, but even so, Ling Ao found that he still could not guarantee that his mind was clear. He only felt that his consciousness was getting blurrier, as if he would fall into endless darkness at any time. "Ha, you really have guts." Jun Moxie laughed, and the overwhelming murderous aura suddenly disappeared. "You're indeed Chu Chihuan's disciple. You haven't learned anything else, but you've learned 100% of your tough bones." Ling Ao panted with difficulty and said slowly, "You shouldn't have asked me. Although I'm here to seek refuge with you, I'm not here to seek refuge with you. Although I'm here to seek refuge with you, I have to come under the orders of my master. As an assassin, I will never reveal the name of my client. Life and death are not a big deal, but the rules must never be broken. I won't ask you again." Jun Moxie smiled. Lang. "When you tried to assassinate me, I had many enemies who wanted to kill me. But now, they are no longer worthy to be my opponent. It doesn't matter whether you know or not. But what I want is your obedience and loyalty in the future." Jun Moxie said solemnly, "I can give you what you want but can't get. I can also give you everything that your master can't teach you. I can also make your cultivation advance by leaps and bounds. But, if you can't give me what I want, then even if you're Chu Chihuan's disciple, I don't want you. Do you understand?" "I understand." Ling Ao's face was sweating. The pressure that the young man in front of him brought to him was even greater than his master, Chu Chihuan. At the very least, Chu Chihuan could not emit such a terrifying murderous aura. As the successor of Chu Chihuan, Ling Ao was well aware of this. No wonder his master said, "Master is just a supreme killer." There's no doubt about this, but that's all. If you go there, you'll be able to see the Emperor of Killers. Could it be that the Emperor of Killers that his master mentioned was this young man in front of him? Very well. I'll give you 5 days. Within 5 days, you have to find Luyan Killer and Tian Can and Deke, then bring them to me. Jun Moxie said decisively, "If you can do it, I'll let you stay. And give you everything you want. That's what Chu Chihuan asked me to give you. But if you can't do it, you'd better continue your wandering in the pugilistic world." He stared into Ling Ao's eyes and said word by word, "Disciple of Chu Chihuan, can you do it?" "I can do it. I can definitely complete this mission." Ling Ao knew that this was a test given to him by the other party, but he was still provoked by Jun Moxie's words. "Can't do it? Wouldn't that be embarrassing his master?" Your movement technique is very fast. And it's different from your master. Your master's movement technique is fast and ethereal, as fast as a dream, but you only pursue fast, pure speed. Why is that? Jun Moxie looked at him and asked. I don't know either. When my master picked me up and taught me mystic arts, he told me that my path of cultivation is only fast. Speaking of this, it was obvious that this killer named Ling Ao was also very puzzled. Oh? Jun Mo Xia got up from his seat and placed his hand on the man's shoulder. Then, a wisp of his spiritual power started to circulate through the man's body. Suddenly, his eyes lit up and he exclaimed, "It's the Peerless Blade?" So that's how it is. Old Chu has the wisdom to recognize people and teach in accordance with their aptitude. It's amazing. Ling Ao was stunned. He did not understand what Jun Dashao meant at all. Jun Moxie raised his head and exhaled. He waved his hand and said, "Go. Remember, within 5 days." Yes. Ling Ao turned around and strode out. The following doesn't count. Today, I noticed that there are people chatting in the group. They're talking about the monthly tickets. Everyone is working hard for Feng Ling's hope, and they're all doing their best to give suggestions. Some brothers and sisters don't have enough subscriptions to get monthly tickets, but they're subscribing to books to get enough monthly tickets to vote. Reading this, my heart is trembling. I'm very excited, very touched, and very ashamed. It turns out that everyone has sacrificed so much for me. What did Feng Ling do to deserve everyone's sacrifice? Everyone came to read books to relax and pass the time, but because of me, they increased the pressure and sacrificed too much. Even many friends have given monthly tickets through tips. I'm very ashamed. I'm just doing what an author should do. Here, I express my gratitude to everyone. Perhaps a gentle thank you didn't mean anything. But it is my gratitude to all of you. Seeing such a situation, my heart is very warm. Yes. No matter what the outcome of this month is, I will feel that I have won. I have won everyone's recognition. This will be my most precious treasure. What a good reader, what a good brother and sister. I can't bear to leave all of you, I really can't. I think I will go on with all of you, in the future, with all of you, I will not be lonely. I will not feel wronged. Chapter 634. Jun Moxie looked at his back, and the question that had been entangled in his mind for a long time was finally revealed. Why was his speed so fast that he did not even have the time to dodge at that time? With the cultivation of an Earth Xian, his speed could surpass the peak of Tian Xian. So that was it. Unparalleled blade. Or it should be called unparalleled toughness. This guy actually had 2 ligaments in his legs that supported his running speed. Extraordinary talent. This kind of natural strange physique was destined to be much faster than the average person. If he could be specially trained, his speed would undoubtedly reach a jaw-dropping level. No wonder Chu Chihuan chose speed for him, pure speed training. However, although Chu Chihuan's choice was correct, and the training was quite good, his training method was still lacking. Therefore, even if Ling Ao's achievements were not low, there was still a limit. At most, he could reach the same height as Chu Chihuan. Ling Ao's future strength would at most be at the level of Chu Chihuan, and most likely would not be as good as his master. But with Jun Moxie, with this kind of physique, Jun Moxie could help him step into a higher level, or even the limit. The limit of speed. The limit of speed. The only question now is whether you're worth my effort or not. Jun Moxie thought deeply. Mei Xuan and Qian Sun rushed all the way. The speed of these two was already amazing, and there was no hindrance along the way. In just a few days' time, they had already rushed back to Tiannan, Tianfa Forest. And now, the experts from the 3 Holy Lands were still recuperating in the barren mountains. They would definitely not come to kill them. Jun Moxie's landslide had caused them huge trouble, and it would be difficult to recover without a few months of rest. However, as soon as they entered the Tianfa Forest, Mei Xuan immediately flew into a rage. He was so angry that his belly almost burst. The Tianfa forest was no longer as gloomy as it had been in the past. There were colorful ribbons fluttering everywhere. It was unknown where these colorful ribbons had come from. Almost every tree in the forest had colorful ribbons fluttering in the air. It was as if a rainbow was swaying in the sky. And the tops of those 1,000-year-old and 10,000-year-old trees were the ones with the most colorful ribbons. Whole strips of red ribbons were hanging on them, swaying in the cold wind, and making a rustling sound. Looking at the ground, Mei Shuiyan was shocked again. All the Xian beasts above the 5th level had a red cloth belt tied around their waists. Each of them wore the red cloth belt as they passed through the thistles and thistles, scurrying back and forth in the underbrush. In a short while, they had turned into strands. Comparatively speaking, the high-level Xian beasts were wearing red belts that were in much better condition. Especially those Xian beasts above the 8th or 9th level. Each and every one of them raised their 2 front paws and walked with their heads held high and their chests puffed out. The red belts around their waists were tied tightly. Underneath the red belts, each and every one of their furry buttocks swayed left and right. However, each and every one of them still put on a very serious appearance, as if they were very honorable. When Bear Mountain, Long Crane, and the rest of the Xian Beast Kings appeared, Mei Shuiyan and Qian Sun's eyes widened. The 6 Beast Kings, Bear King, Tiger King, Crane King, Lion King, Monkey King, and Eagle King, walked with their heads held high. They lined up neatly to welcome them. Each of them walked with a majestic gait. Mei Shuiyan and Qian Sun felt as if they were looking at 6 bridegrooms. Because these 6 Beast Kings were all dressed in red. There were even flowers in their hair. Along the way, the red light was dazzling. Their faces were full of joy, and their bodies were full of pride. However, each of them looked at Mei Shuiyan's body ambiguously. Then, they hurriedly stood up straight. Did something good happen in the Tianfa forest recently? Mei Shuiyan frowned and looked at the 6 people in front of her suspiciously. She could tell with a single glance that the strength of these fellows had greatly increased. If they were to be classified by human standards, then any one of these 6 fellows would have the cultivation of a superior supreme. Moreover, all of them were at the peak of the superior supreme level. Just one more step and they would be able to enter the ranks of the superior supreme. This kind of shocking improvement was unbelievable, but it was also a pleasant surprise. Jun Mo Xie's pills had really played a very, very big role in this. Cough cough, isn't boss's return the most joyous occasion? Bear Mountain King coughed twice. His face revealed an awkward expression, as if he couldn't wait to show off but was forcefully suppressing it. He twisted his thick waist and actually made a polite gesture. Boss, please step into the palace. Palace. 4th Brother Bear's mouth actually came out with such a high level of civilized vocabulary. This accident made Mei Shuiyan a little dizzy. When did this fellow become so cultured? The 6 kings clustered around Mei Shuiyan and escorted her to the core of the Tianfa forest. This was originally Mei Shuiyan's residence. It was surrounded by mountains and rivers, and the environment was quiet and beautiful. It was the place that Mei Shuiyan liked the most. But it was also the place where she was raped by someone the last time. However, the scene in front of her shocked Mei Shuiyan once again. The surrounding trees had been chopped down cleanly, leaving only the circle in the center as a barrier. The surrounding area of a few hundred feet had become a large piece of empty land. Not even a single blade of grass could be seen. Looking inside again, the construction had already started on a large scale. Trenches crisscrossed each other, and countless high-level dark beasts were sweating like it was raining as they did hard labor. But even though all of them were exhausted to the point of sticking out their tongues, their faces were filled with excitement and honor. It was as if being able to do hard work here was such an honorable thing. What the hell is going on here? Mei Shuiyan suddenly turned around and flew into a rage. She glared fiercely at Bear Mountain and Long Crane. You two, hurry up and tell me. If you can't give me a reasonable explanation, then you'll have to transform again. Mei Shuiyan raised her eyebrows, and her face was full of anger. Her eyes were cold and murderous. The 6 Xian Beast Kings were startled at the same time. After a long while, Lion King walked over with his head lowered. Big brother. Hee, isn't this celebration, hee. Everything is for Big Brother's celebration. We brothers wanted to celebrate for you, but you're not satisfied, for my celebration? What kind of shameful excuse is this? You messed up my place, and you say it's for me. I'm not satisfied. I'll be damned if I'm satisfied. Mei Shuiyan raised her leg and kicked the thick-skinned guy away. She glared fiercely at Long Crane. Third Crane, you speak. Big sister, this is actually not that big of a deal. You don't need to take it to heart. Although, some people might not understand this, but the brothers of Tian Fa will always support you and love you. We hope that big sister, this, bravely open your arms and embrace your happiness. I don't know what I'm talking about. Long Crane's sharp mouth opened and closed, and his mouth was full of strange words. At least, Mei Shuiyan couldn't understand what this guy was talking about. The more she listened, the more confused she became. That's right. Big sister, so what if you're a Xian beast? We're the race that contributes the most to the continent. Why are you still worried about those talkative people? Just do what needs to be done. Don't worry, if anyone dares to say another word, I'll immediately lead my brothers over and annihilate their entire family. The Eagle King's hooked nose twitched, and his voice was filled with killing intent as he spoke with righteous indignation. That's right. That's right. Open your mind and embrace your happiness. The rest of the Beast Kings echoed. What's wrong? What's going on? You're making me confused. Mei Shuiyan put her hand on her forehead and said painfully, can't you guys come out and explain to me what's going on? It's like this, big sister. The Monkey King jumped out and said, as soon as we heard about Big Sister's happy event, we immediately started. Wait. Stop. Mei Shuiyan finally grasped the main point. Happy event? What happy event? What happy event? The Crane King, the Lion King, the Monkey King, and the Eagle King all had a strange look on their faces. Bear Mountain and Earthcracker were quietly and slowly moving backwards. Big sister, cough cough, don't take it to heart. In fact, this matter isn't shameful at all. The Monkey King was stunned for a while and quickly consoled her. Not shameful? What matter isn't shameful? Mei Shuiyan was fuming. What the hell are you guys talking about? Venerable Mei was obviously on the verge of going berserk. Isn't it because of you and brother-in-law? The Monkey King grinned and said in a low voice. Then, he gathered his courage and said, Boss, we're all very happy that you found your own happiness. As for your happy occasion, we didn't have the time to attend it. So, we decided to celebrate it in Tian Fa on our own, and, he pointed with his finger and said flatteringly, for example, this is the palace that we prepared for you and your brother-in-law. Since you are married, you will definitely live together. Ha ha ha. Also, over there, I am going to ask people to plant that kind of fluffy grass. In the future, if you have children, you can play there. It is soft, safe, and convenient. Married? Children? What are you talking about? Mei Shuiyan's face gradually darkened. Her whole body was brewing a dangerous aura. She turned her head and looked at Long Crane like a sharp sword. Third brother Crane, explain to me. Long Crane's mouth opened and closed twice. He deliberated for a long time and finally said with difficulty, Big sister obviously didn't want us to know that you chose to secretly get married outside. But we've known each other for so many years, and we're already like family. No matter what, we have to do our best for Big Sister. Ever since 4th Brother Bear and 9th Brother Tiger brought back the news of Big Sister's happy event, we all had a discussion and decided to celebrate together in Tian Fa. Besides, you asked 4th Brother Bear to bring back so much money, wouldn't it be a waste if we don't spend it? Hee, ugh. Recommending my brother's book, Rebirth Sweeps the Wind and Clouds, an urban novel. This guy is trying to get into the list of new books. Everyone, go and help him. This guy is a lascivious man, and I reckon his books will be lascivious. Well, of course, we can read them, but we must keep our purity. Don't be led astray by him. You will all advance with me, and sooner or later you will all become as pure as me. I have no doubt about this. Chapter 635. Long Crane chuckled as he finished speaking. He thought that his words were very appropriate. But he saw that Mei Xuan's face was getting more and more unsightly. In fact, it looked like it was going to turn into a thunderstorm at any time. Long Crane was quick to react, and immediately shut his mouth. He was secretly perturbed. Did I not express myself clearly enough? Bear Mountain, Earth Cracker. You too. You too. Ha ha ha. Mei Xuan was so angry that she burst into laughter. Her expression was very dangerous as she leaned forward and said in a gloomy voice, "So, I'm already married. How come I didn't know about this? Ah, this, that. Big Bear and Earth Cracker's hairy faces twisted in a split second. Their faces turned red, and they became tongue-tied. In fact, they couldn't speak a word. You're still talking about this and that? Who did I get married to? When did I get married? Mei Xuan's eyes flashed as she stepped forward. Suddenly, she roared, Bear Mountain. Earth Cracker. Raise your heads and look at me. Bear Mountain trembled. His face was so bitter that it seemed as if juice was about to drip out of it. He didn't know where to put his hands and feet. Long Crane was stunned for a moment. Then, he jumped up and screamed in a strange voice, Fourth Brother Bear. You bastard, the news you brought back is fake. Boss isn't married. And you. Suddenly a loud shout was heard, you have a lot of guts. Do you want to die? This, that, it's going to happen sooner or later. Big Bear secretly breathed through his nose and retorted, rolling his eyelids. You bastard. You urged me to do such a thing to tarnish Boss's reputation. You've made a big joke out of yourself. You're still trying to reason with me? You still dare to refute? Long Crane was furious. Bear Mountain was the one who brought back the news. But, he was the one who mobilized and arranged everything in the Tianfa forest. How could he not panic? You're still shouting over there? Shut up. Mei Xuan fiercely turned her head and looked at Long Crane, one more word and I'll break your neck. Long Crane trembled, and quickly shut his mouth. He didn't dare to say a word. Big sister, this is what brother-in-law wants us to do. Big Bear finally couldn't bear this huge pressure, and said while crying, Big brother. I am loyal to you, as bright as the sun and the moon. Oh ho ho ho. Mei Xuan was so angry that the veins on her forehead were bulging. She took a deep breath and asked, was it June Moxie? Hearing this, everyone had a strange look on their faces. Didn't you deny it? Why did you say June Moxie the moment I mentioned brother-in-law? Yes. Bear Mountain heaved a sigh of relief and hurriedly said, Big sister, we're doing this for your own good. Brother-in-law is a good person, Mei Xuan's chest rose and fell violently. Her face was ashen as she closed her eyes and took a deep breath. Suddenly, she opened her eyes and roared like thunder, I'm going to kill all of you bastards. All of you, die. If I don't make all of you happy, you won't know why the flowers are so red. Venerable Mei, who was able to say such words, was obviously completely enraged. Inexplicably, Mei Xuan moved like lightning and attacked, bang bang bang. In the depths of the Tianfa forest, dust filled the sky. A group of Beast Kings were beaten up by Mei Xuan with her fists. Although the Beast King's strength had improved a lot and had climbed to the superior supreme level, they were nothing in front of their big sister. Not to mention that their strength was inferior, even if they could resist, they would not dare to resist. Long Crane and the other beast kings had spent a lot of effort to create this vast open space. Not a single bit of it was wasted. It became a great place for them to be abused. One by one, strong bodies were thrown up like rubber balls and then fell down. Then, they were hit and sent flying again. Screams were heard one after another, each more miserable and louder than the last. Although they were screaming miserably and seemed to be in dire straits, all the beast kings felt as if a heavy burden had been lifted from their shoulders. Boss didn't go too hard on them. It wasn't as heavy as they had imagined. At least, it wasn't as ruthless as before. This time, although they looked furious, they only suffered some physical pain. Yes, they would only suffer some physical pain. There would definitely not be any serious internal injuries. Big Brother's actions could be said to be very appropriate. The Beast Kings indeed looked like they had been beaten to the extreme, but in reality, they were not seriously injured. All the Beast Kings had thick skin and flesh, so what was the big deal about this little bit of beating? It was almost not even physical pain. Physical pain would still cause some injuries, and it would only hurt for a while. It was not even as serious as when they were sparring and accidentally getting injured. However, he still had to save face for the sake of his boss. So, the Beast Kings cried even more miserably. Each and every one of them cried out in pain. That sound was as if they were suffering from the cruelest torture. "Ah!" Big Bear cried out in cadence. He winked as he was kicked up into the air. He waved his hands and feet as he flew in the air. Then, he screamed, "Aya, big sister, you're so strong. My bones are going to break." Earthcracker imitated him and screamed. His face was full of hemorrhoids. He covered his buttocks and screamed, "My buttocks have split into 2 pieces." Everyone looked at him in disdain. This idiot doesn't even know how to brag. Whose buttocks don't have 2 pieces? Oh, Careless Rock held his head as he was kicked away. He screamed, "Big sister is so powerful. My legs are going to break." Everyone looked at him in disdain. Why are you holding your head and screaming when your legs are going to break? You don't even know how to act. Ah! The Monkey King did a series of somersaults. He shouted, "Big sister's kick is so ruthless. It kicked me so hard that I somersaulted dozens of times, so painful." So painful, all the Beast Kings roared in unison. One roar caused the mountains to collapse and the earth to crack. Another roar caused the sun and moon to lose their luster. "Big sister, please spare us." They begged for mercy together. Their voices were so loud that it didn't seem like they were begging for mercy. Instead, it seemed like they were joking. Mei Shuiyan was undoubtedly very angry when she saw this scene. However, she also felt a little shy and happy at the same time. This was the feeling of a young girl. However, it wasn't convenient for her to show this kind of embarrassment. So, she could only find an excuse to vent her anger. She could also use this as a pretext to cover up her feelings. So, she naturally stopped when she attacked. However, she didn't expect that these guys were so thick-skinned and thick-skinned. Moreover, they were so dumb that they couldn't think straight. Since they could see that she wasn't really angry, wouldn't it be fine if they just put on a show? Who would have thought that this bunch of idiots didn't even know how to put on a show? Each of them was worse than the other. In the end, they even cried out in pain happily. This wasn't a fight anymore. It was a fight to see who had the loudest voice. Looking at them again, their faces were originally filled with fear and restraint. But now, they were all grinning from ear to ear and winking happily. They were all sticking out their tongues and making funny faces. Were they getting beaten up or celebrating the new year? This time, Mei Shuiyan really couldn't hold on any longer. Her face turned red. She was really angry out of humiliation. Thus, the strength of her hands and legs increased to a considerable level. Ah! Ah! Oh my God! Help! Spare me! A series of blood-curdling screams resounded once again. This time, it was different from before. Previously, everyone could hear that the screams sounded miserable and louder, but in reality, there was no pain at all. However, this time, it was the complete opposite. The 6 beast kings were gritting their teeth and hissing as they sucked in cold air. It was obvious that the pain was coming from deep within their bones. They didn't even have the intention to scream anymore. All they could do was gasp. It was really too painful. Their eyes were filled with pain and confusion. What's going on? Why did the situation suddenly change? Could it be that everyone's passionate performance just now wasn't good enough? It must be that Hujio's acting was too lame, or that Monkey Chi's acting was too pretentious. I'm the only one who acted well. It's all because of those idiots. They're too unlucky. Heavy punches continuously landed on their faces. In just a short while, most of the members of the number 1 group, which represented the highest strength in the Tian Fa forest, were all bruised and swollen. Long Crane's long mouth was almost broken. Bear Mountain, the Bear King, was directly turned into a Panda King. Tiger King was actually beaten into his original form. He was a big white tiger without a single strand of hair. Then, he was grabbed by the tail and thrown into the air. Then, he rolled his eyes and fainted. The tiger seemed to have turned into a sick cat. The Monkey King was beaten until he rolled in the air like a rubber ball. This time, it wasn't spontaneous. Instead, it was due to the inertia of the external force. His brain was ringing endlessly. Just as the Lion King stood up in a daze, he was immediately hit in the face by hundreds of heavy punches. His face was blooming like a peach blossom blossoming like a blooming peach blossom, and stars swirling in the sky. He swayed and fell down, directly turning into a pig-head king. The Eagle King's hooked nose was almost beaten into a Lion King's nose. The Snake King, who was watching the battle from the side, was originally laughing happily. But now, his face was pale and his whole body was trembling. The cheering and clapping just now had long since been thrown out of the window. Later on, their eyes were staring straight at the scene. Oh my God! So boss is really angry. Finally, Mei Shuiyan let out a long sigh and landed gracefully on the ground. She looked coldly at the Beast Kings lying on the ground and snorted. How is it? Did you guys enjoy yourselves? Did you guys enjoy yourselves this time? Why aren't you shouting anymore? Where did your enthusiasm go? Yes. Yes. The Panda King, Bear Mountain, wanted to cry but had no tears. He nodded his head like a chicken pecking at rice. You didn't break your bones? Say it. Do you still dare to mess around? Mei Shuiyan's face flushed with an almost imperceptible blush. We won't dare, we won't dare. The 6 Beast Kings nodded their heads in unison. The sickly Cat King, Earthcracker, quickly crawled out of the pit and transformed back into his human form. Don't worry, big sister. I'll order them to leave immediately. Long Crane shook his dizzy head, and turned around in a daze. Then, he shouted loudly, Get the hell out of here, all of you. This bullshit palace is not going to be built anymore. All of you, get out. Get out. Bullshit palace? Not going to be built anymore. Mei Shuiyan raised her eyes and looked at Long Crane with a red face. What do you mean? The gap between the monthly votes is getting bigger and bigger. Brothers, sisters, are you going to admit defeat like this? It's 15:10 in the afternoon. I'm going to erupt non-stop from now on. Until midnight. I'm the first in the monthly votes. I'm going to erupt until midnight. I'm going to lose the monthly votes. I'm going to erupt until midnight. I don't know how much more I can erupt. Brothers and sisters, please give me strength. Today, I'm going to open the prelude to the Silver Blizzard City. The excitement is about to begin. I'm begging for monthly votes. Chapter 636. Ah. Ha. What? Long Crane was at a complete loss. He sat down on the ground and shook his head vigorously. Then, he quickly dug his ears. Did I get beaten silly by boss? Am I hearing things now? Didn't you beat us up because you were angry? Why are you saying this now? What are you talking about? What I mean is, since it's already like this, there's no way to restore it to its original state. Then, we'll just make the best use of it and continue to build. Mei Xuan knew that she was being unreasonable. She blushed and said fiercely, "What? Do you still dare to refuse?" "What?" Boss is blushing. "We're not dreaming, are we?" Willing, very willing. The 6 Beast Kings' brains short-circuited at the same time. They looked dazed and nodded repeatedly. Then let's leave it at that. Mei Xuan's expression was one of anger, one of embarrassment and one of joy. She rolled her eyes and suddenly stomped her feet heavily. "You gluttons, come with me. I have something to ask you." A wisp of fragrance floated away with a whoosh. Venerable Mei could feel his face burning. It was too embarrassing. The 6 Beast Kings looked at each other, puzzled. What was going on? But they all had a common understanding in their hearts: today's beating was for nothing. And it was an injustice. That was 3 levels of injustice. Qian Sun Serpent Queen's face was ashen as she said, "What are you waiting for? Hurry up and go. What are you waiting for? Do you want to get beaten up?" Woo! She suddenly covered her face and sobbed. She didn't get beaten up. Why is she crying? What kind of explanation is this? The 6 Beast Kings were shocked. What the fuck? What happened today was too unimaginable. A lesson for no reason turned into a beating. Boss actually blushed. What's more, the people who got beaten up didn't even cry, but those who didn't get beaten started to cry. What kind of explanation was this? Mei Xuan sat at the head of the table. The 7 Beast Kings were divided into 2 rows. They took deep breaths and touched their wounds from time to time. The youngest is still in seclusion. Mei Xuan frowned. Yes. The 6 Beast Kings replied succinctly. First, tell me how many Xian beasts are above level 9. I want to hear the detailed numbers. Mei Xuan snorted. The bear tribe has 1,764 Xian beasts above level 9. Among them, there are 824 Xian beasts above level 9. There are 640 Xian level 9 Xian beasts above level 9. There are 300 peak level 9 beasts. There are a total of 2,169 cranes above level 9. Among them, 1,184 are at level 9, 740 are at level 9, and the number of peak level cranes is slightly smaller. There are less than 250 of them. The crane tribe has 2,169 Xian beasts above level 9. Among them, there are 1,184 Xian level 9 beasts. There are 7 peak level 9 beasts. Long Crane said. The Eagle King has 4,800 Xian beasts above level 9. Among them, there are 3,006 Xian level 9 beasts. There are 1,050 peak level 9 beasts. The Eagle King was a little ashamed. His tribe had the most Xian beasts, but the number of peak level 9 beasts was the least. The Monkey tribe has 2,500 Xian beasts above level 9. Among them, there are 1,400 Xian level 9 beasts. There are 600 Xian level 9 beasts. The Monkey King Ho Chi looked a little bitter. Among all the Xian beasts, his tribe was the most difficult to manage. Some time ago, he was injured and fell back a level. Many of his subordinates rebelled and were ready to make trouble. This had dealt a serious blow to his reputation. If he had not used the medicine that June Moxie had given him to increase his strength and reach the level of Great Master level, he would have been in trouble. I will personally take care of the monkey tribe later. Mei Xuan Lengleng looked at him and said, "You bastard. You can't even manage your subordinates. What kind of king are you?" "Boss, I..." Ho Chi was a little dejected and wronged. Ever since he was injured, he felt that it was not easy to get his cultivation. He was always kind to his challengers. He was even more afraid of accidentally killing them. Especially after his strength had increased, he had been more lenient. But his subordinates didn't know what was good for them. They were getting more and more rampant. You will never achieve great things if you are soft-hearted. Mei Shuyan snorted and looked at the Lion King. The lion tribe has 3,600 Xian level 9 beasts. Among them, there are 1,750 Xian level 9 beasts. The Lion King grinned and said, there were 3,605 of them. But 5 blind ones challenged me some time ago. I tore them apart one by one. Now, they are even more obedient than newborn cubs. The Lion King smiled proudly. Good job. In troubled times, severe punishment is needed. In power, severe punishment is needed. If you want to be the leader, you must have the courage to pay the price. Mei Shuyan's face was gloomy. She nodded slowly. The snake tribe has 4,300 Xian level 9 beasts. 3,000 Xian level 9 beasts. 700 Xian level 9 beasts. 600 Xian level 9 beasts. The Qian Sun Serpent Queen calculated in her heart and said, not bad. Mei Shuyan smiled approvingly. The last one is the leopard tribe. Ever since the leopard tribe lost their former leopard king, a new leopard king hasn't been born. During this time, they don't accept each other. They have fought several times. More than 10 of them have died. Bear Mountain King murmured as he peeped at Mei Shuyan's face. After the death of the Leopard King, Bear King was temporarily in charge of the leopard tribe. However, those fellows were not honest. Moreover, Bear King was a lazy person. So, it was not a surprise that there was chaos in the tribe. Give me a specific number. I don't want to hear that. Mei Shuyan's eyes turned cold. I will let the leopard tribe have a good time in the afternoon. Hearing this, the beast kings showed a gloating expression. The leopard tribe has 3,900 Xian level 9 beasts. 2,100 Xian level 9 beasts. 1,300 Xian level 9 beasts. 500 Xian level 9 beasts. Bear Mountain King said. Well, what about the rock tribe? How many of them are there after the second brother left? Mei Shuyan's eyes darkened as she asked. The rock tribe has 1,100 Xian level 9 beasts. 500 Xian level 9 beasts. 370 Xian level 9 beasts. 230 Xian level 9 beasts. Long Crane sighed. And the youngest eagle tribe has 4,600 Xian level 9 beasts. 2,900 Xian level 9 beasts. 2,200 Xian level 9 beasts. 500 Xian level 9 beasts. The eagle tribe has been developing quite well during this period of time. You, third brother Crane, have contributed a lot in this. But the rock tribe. Alright, we'll talk about it in the afternoon. Mei Shuyan frowned deeply and said slowly. Right now, the most important thing is to create a few king beasts. Create a few king beasts? Hearing this, the beast kings could not help but feel a little dizzy. Could the king of the Xian beasts also be created? Although there were already enough shocks today, this latest one was still a little too shocking. Wasn't this a little too fantastical? This afternoon, gather all the Xian beasts that are about to reach the shape-shifting stage in the entire Tian Fa. Mei Shuyan calmly issued an order. Although her tone was light, it contained a majestic aura that was as strict as a mountain. Boss, did brother-in-law give you a lot of good pills? Bear Mountain King's eyes lit up as he asked excitedly. As he said this, saliva actually flowed out of the corner of his mouth. With that pair of panda eyes on his face, it was as comical as it could get. And he did give a lot. This time, the strength of our Tian Fa is finally going to take a huge leap. There will no longer be the 3 holy beasts and 1 ferocious beasts. There will only be 1 ferocious 3 holy beasts. Mei Shuyan also revealed a faint smile. There was a look of longing in her eyes. Third brother, fourth brother, how many of the Xian beasts that are close to shapeshifting? Long Crane and Bear Mountain nervously exchanged information for a while. Then, Long Crane said, there are about 500 that have reached the shape-shifting stage. Fourth brother and I have done a detailed count, and the exact number is about 489. Boss, you also know that Xian beasts shape-shifting is one of the most difficult hurdles for us Xian beasts. Every generation of Xian beasts that are close to shape-shifting has this number, and sometimes even more. But there have never been more than 20 Xian beasts that have succeeded in shape-shifting. Most of them just stay stuck there until they die of old age. Long Crane sighed and said, fourth brother and the others had brought back some elixirs, and they were very effective. Everyone had leveled up by at least one level. The Lion King and the Monkey King had leveled up by 2 levels. Their strength had soared. But, it's already a blessing to have such a number of elixirs. We can't have hundreds of them at once. So, we should choose the strongest ones and give them to them to ensure that they can shape-shift smoothly. Fourth Crane spoke slowly. He was secretly looking at Mei Shuiyan's complexion from the corner of his eyes. His words weren't optimistic, but the hope in his voice was evident. Mei Shuiyan's face sank. Her brows were slightly wrinkled. It seemed as if she was worried about something. Long Crane's heart sank. His words were getting more and more meaningless. I understand what you're saying. There aren't many Xian beasts at the peak of 9th level among the different clans. But, there are still thousands of them. So, where are we going to find so many elixirs? Mei Shuiyan said in a serious tone. Everyone sighed in unison. So, we can only strengthen those who can shapeshift first to ensure that they can safely break through this hurdle. As for the future, we'll talk about it later. Mei Shuiyan took a deep breath. Ah! What? Everyone was dumbfounded. Long Crane's mouth opened so wide that it almost dislocated. He stammered, BB boss. What did you just say? 500 Xian beasts at the peak of 9th level, at the same time. Is there a problem? Mei Shuiyan looked at him strangely. Don't tell me you don't want to. If you don't want to, the Crane clan can choose not to participate in this breakthrough. I didn't, you. Whoa. Long Crane suddenly jumped up, and let out a roar unique to the Tiger King. The other Beast Kings almost thought that the old Crane had transformed into a tiger. Chapter 637. But the Beast Kings immediately understood what Mei Shuiyan meant, and they couldn't help but cheer. Although Tian Fa's strength will experience a huge leap after this, reaching a height that has never been seen before, the favor we owe Jun Imosia is too great, so great that it's hard for us to repay him. Mei Shuiyan sighed lightly. She suddenly felt an inexplicable warmth in her heart when she said this name. What are you talking about, elder sister? We and our brother-in-law are a family. You and your husband don't owe each other anything. Kaka, Earthcracker smiled mischievously and said, we are brothers-in-law. So, we obviously have to take advantage of our brother-in-law's glory. Isn't that right, everyone? That's right, brother-in-law doesn't eat brother-in-law's food and drink brother-in-law's food. How can we call ourselves brother-in-law's brother-in-law? Although we are a little larger in number. The Beast Kings roared with laughter. All of you, shut up. Are you itching for a beating again? Mei Shuiyan was embarrassed and angry at the same time. You bunch of useless things. The Beast Kings froze, and kept quiet out of fear. Fourth brother Xiong, you said, he said that he would rather come to Tian Fa Forest to live? Mei Shuiyan pouted and sulked for a long time. No one knew what she was thinking, but she suddenly opened her mouth and asked Bear Mountain. Did he really say that? Elder sister, what are you talking about? There's no head or tail, which him? Bear Mountain scratched his head and asked, as if he really didn't know. Fourth brother Bear. Mei Shuiyan shouted. Come here, I'll help you loosen your bones. I guarantee that you'll feel comfortable, and you'll understand once you're comfortable. Oh, there's no need to trouble yourself. Aren't you talking about brother-in-law? I understand. Bear Mountain seemed to have come to a sudden realization and said, yes, didn't brother-in-law say that at that time? Hee, this point, old Tiger 9 can testify. Both of us are honest people and won't talk big. Earthcracker hastily nodded, yes, I can testify. Big sister, brother-in-law is sincere to you. The two of us are so honest, when have we ever boasted? All the Beast Kings looked at them in disdain. You two think you're being honest? You don't know how to boast? Too shameless. The redness on Mei Shuiyan's face deepened. She heaved a sigh of relief, and her eyes flickered for a while. Then, she said, let's not talk about that. Jun Moxie is about to send his troops to Blizzard Silver City. This move, firstly, was to intimidate the world. Secondly, it was for revenge. There were countless mysteries in this. The three Holy Lands would also intervene in this matter. Since our Tian Fa has received so much grace from him, this time, we must do our best to help him achieve this goal. Don't worry, big sister. We will definitely do our best to support brother-in-law's actions, and we will not hesitate to go through fire and water. At that time, our entire Tian Fa forest will be mobilized, and we will directly trample the snowy mountains into plains. Fuck their granny. All the Beast Kings patted their chests and promised solemnly. All of them thumped their chests so loudly that it shook the heavens. Everyone began to call him brother-in-law, but Mei Shuiyan did not stop them, nor did she object. It was as if she had quietly accepted the word of brother-in-law, so during this period of time, we must raise everyone's strength as much as possible. Mei Shuiyan's eyes turned as cold as ice. From this afternoon onwards, the entire Tian Fa forest will be on lockdown. In 7 days, 489 peak 9th level Xian beasts must complete their transformation. After that, prepare 6,000 flying type Xian beasts, and 5,000 ground type Xian beasts. Starting from the peak of the king rank, even if the three Holy Lands really turn out in full force, my Tian Fa will fight them head-on. We will kill them with an unprecedented blood red. Mei Shuiyan's killing intent soared to the sky, and she issued a strict order. Yes! Crane King, Bear King, and the rest bowed in unison, their faces solemn, and their expressions fervent. After 10,000 years, Tian Fa had finally risen again today. Mei Shuiyan stood on top of an ancient tree, looking into the distance. Her expression was calm, but there was a hint of longing in the depths of her eyes. It had only been a few days since they parted, but why was she already so longing for him? She really missed those days in the past, fighting side by side, burning passion in the igloo, whispering sweet nothings. In any case, everything related to him appeared in front of her eyes. Just standing there in a daze, Jun Moxie's handsome face suddenly appeared in Mei Shuiyan's heart, and she also remembered the words Jun Moxie said before she left, "Spring flowers bloom, one sword to break Blizzard Silver City." Spring flowers bloom, one sword to break Blizzard Silver City. This was the deadline he set. There were still about 2 months left. That enemy had set the date on the 2nd of February. Time was tight. So Mei Shuiyan wanted to build the strongest Xian beast army in this period of time, to coordinate with her lover's magnificent feat of flattening Blizzard Silver City. And in this period of time, Jun Moxie had also released this news in Tianxiang City. Once this shocking news was made known to the world, the whole world would be shaken and shocked. Everyone could clearly see that the Jun family was going to take revenge on Blizzard Silver City when spring flowers bloom. This rare war was unavoidable. 10 years of loyal souls cannot rest in peace, 3,000 days and nights of blood red. The Azure Dragon raises its head, the 2nd of February thousands of troops trample Blizzard Silver City. It was said that Jun Moxie suddenly wrote this poem after one night of drinking. Then, he smashed a wine cup, and his body reeked of alcohol and murderous intent as he roared, 2nd of February, break Blizzard's Silver City. Destroy that traitor Shao, and avenge our great enmity. Although others did not understand why Jun Moxie set the date on the 2nd of February, Jun Moxie himself knew in his heart. However, Jun Mo Xia knew it in his heart. Moreover, he had sufficient reason to do so. The 2nd of February, the dragon raises its head. This was a Chinese proverb. On the 2nd of February next year, I will represent the dragon god of China, and raise my head to look down on the world. I, Jun Moxie, hereby announce to the world, anyone who has good relations with the Shao family of Blizzard's Silver City, get out of my way, or I will kill them all. Kill them all. Kill them all. Those who obey me will prosper, and those who oppose me will perish. Who in the world dares to defy me? Jun Mo Xia's poem and the 3 sentences of his roar had spread throughout the entire Xian continent in just a few short days with the speed and volume of a thunderclap. It was close to the end of the year, but the continent was filled with huge waves. This year was destined to not be a peaceful one. At least, many people would not be able to eat on this New Year's Eve, and were deeply worried. And on the 29th of December, Jun Moxie unexpectedly received a letter from Li Yuran. There were only a few short sentences on it. I'm leaving. I'm going to the Great Golden City. Tomorrow is the New Year's Eve, but I don't want to spend it in Tianxiang City. With you around, I'm really depressed. Maybe one day, I will come back. I will fight with you again. This time, I lost before the fight even started. But next time, I will fight no matter what. Also, be careful of the blood sword hall changing clothes. The signature was, the leisurely departed Li Yuran. Jun Moxie slowly held the note in his hand, and smiled faintly, letting the note curl up into a ball in his hand. He sighed softly. Li Yuran had actually chosen to leave home on the 29th of December. The day before the New Year's Eve, he had left home thousands of miles away. Even a prodigal son like Jun Moxie had never experienced such a thing. Therefore, it was difficult for him to understand Li Yuran's current mood. However, Jun Moxie felt an inexplicable sense of sadness. Presumably, Li Yuran must have felt a trace of sadness in his heart, no matter how ruthless and cold-blooded he was. He was born into a wealthy family, and had never had to worry about food or clothing. But, he didn't necessarily enjoy many good things in his life. On the contrary, he had seen nothing but cruelty, blood, and the destruction of humanity since he was a child. He had seen nothing but intrigue and power struggles. He may not be better off than me. This pampered young master of a wealthy family has finally chosen to leave. Moreover, he has chosen to leave at such a time of family reunion. Jun Moxie understood that Li Yuran had used his decisive action to show his determination to stay away from power struggles. At the same time, he had also vaguely revealed a piece of information to him: be careful of the Blood Sword Hall's change of clothes. Yes, the Blood Sword Hall that had changed its clothes was naturally no longer the Blood Sword Hall. It could be an ordinary citizen, a well-off businessman, a dignified military officer, or even a serving official. Of course, it could also be an imperial bodyguard. But no matter what, this subtle piece of information could be considered as Jun Moxie owing Li Yuran a favor. Although Jun Moxie was no longer afraid of any sudden attacks from any forces, Li Yuran's information had pointed him in a direction that Jun Moxie had previously neglected. Perhaps, Li Yuran's purpose in doing this was to make a final effort for his family. In fact, it could even be said that he was fighting for his family's future. He had quietly made Jun Mo Xia owe him a favor twice. Then, the leader of the Li family's younger generation had quietly left. Now, the Li family had become a toothless, decadent tiger. There was no longer any threat to them. Therefore, Li Yuran had clearly laid out this fact, hoping that Jun Moxie would give the Li family a way out. This was Li Yuran's true intention. Although he was cold-blooded, although he only cared about profit and would do anything to achieve his goals, there was still a trace of warmth in his heart, a trace of kinship. Jun Moxie let out a long sigh and shook his head. He did not say anything. With a wave of his hand, the piece of paper turned into fragments and floated away with the wind. With a whoosh, the fragments disappeared without a trace. Sounds of laughter could be heard coming from the hall of the inner courtyard. All the members of the June family had gathered together. Grandpa June was greatly comforted. Dongfang Wenxin, June Moxie, June Wui, and Guan Qinghan were sitting around. Beside them, Duga Xiaoyi was also there, refusing to go back no matter what. The little girl's thoughts were very simple. I have to watch over it. What if I don't get my share? Therefore, the little girl had made up her mind. Tomorrow, she would go home to celebrate the New Year's Eve. Once it was past midnight, which was the first day of the new year, she would come back to watch over it. This time, the cooked duck must not be allowed to fly away no matter what. It's already midnight. Everyone, please search through your box of monthly votes and see if there are any leftovers. Or, you can click on the monthly votes page. Who knows, you might get a surprise. Wow. I still have a waha. Chapter 638. However, she was not the only one who had latched onto the June family. The true master of the Duga family, Duga Zongheng, had also latched onto the June family. It was fine if Duga Xiaoyi did not leave, but he, the dignified head of the Duga family, did not return home to take charge of the overall situation, but instead stayed at the June family's residence. However, Duga Zongheng argued, I won't go home even if you beat me to death. All the younger ones at home come home during the new year, and the 3 sons and 7 grandsons are like a litter of pigs. Other than being angry, there is nothing else to do at home. Duga Zongheng is enough. This matter was immediately confirmed. When Duga Zongheng came to invite Duga Zongheng home, his nose was bruised and his face was swollen. Duga Zongheng scolded him and beat him with a stick. It turned out that Duga Zongheng's 2 younger brothers had returned home. Duga Zongheng, who had suffered at the hands of Duga Zongheng for a year, naturally wanted to complain and show off his authority as the eldest brother. Then, they discussed who would stay behind for the next year. At first, the 2 of them listened to their eldest brother's instructions with their heads bowed, but in the end, no one was willing to stay at home. Duga Zongheng was naturally unhappy. Damn it, you guys are hiding far away, happy to be idle, but what about me? Do I have to endure it alone? Do I have to be abused as the eldest brother? So, he began to sternly reprimand them, trying to persuade them with emotion and reason. However, the 2 brothers were unmoved and could only shake their heads. Helpless, Duga Zongheng flew into a rage out of humiliation, and simply used force to threaten them. The 2 brothers did not want to be outdone. This was related to their lives for the next year. The 2 little ones had a tacit understanding and joined hands to beat up the older one. When the 3 brothers fought, the 7 younger ones outside, although they usually had a good relationship, naturally had to help their respective fathers. Therefore, they also began to argue for what was right. In the end, they also used their fists to do the talking. The 7 brothers directly fought into a ball. Only when the old mistress came out and gave them a good beating with her dragon-headed walking stick did they finally settle down. However, the old mistress was so tired that she was panting. More importantly, she was so angry that she sent someone to invite the old master back to take charge. The family looked left and right, looking as if they had just come out of a battlefield. The only one who could come out was the eldest brother, Duga Zongheng. Besides, the June family was Duga Zongheng's in-laws, so who else could come if not him? But when Duga Zongheng came, Duga Zongheng immediately became furious. Look at the June family, and then look at my own son, who came with a bloody nose and a swollen face on the 29th day of the new year. Isn't this clearly undermining me? Without saying a word, he picked up his cane, and from the looks of it, it seemed like he was going to break Duga Zongheng's leg. Duga Zongheng's old wounds had not yet healed, and now he had a new one. He stood in the house of his future son-in-law, and before he could even catch his breath, he had already fled. Even after he had left for a long time, Duga Zongheng was still angry, and was muttering to himself, family's misfortune, unfilial son, and so on. Duga Xiaoyi comforted him softly, and simply leaned on her grandfather, acting like a spoiled child to amuse him. After a long time, the old man's expression finally became better. Mu Shuetong was also present, and was chatting with Jun Wui with a smile on his face. Mu Shuetong and Han Yen Meng looked as if a heavy burden had been lifted from their shoulders ever since Jun Moxie had made that world-shaking announcement. They were still somewhat concerned about the Blizzard Silver City, but they also knew that nothing would happen to the Blizzard Silver City from the moment Jun Moxie had made that announcement. After all, even if the Shao family was stupid, they wouldn't rashly start an internal strife at such a critical juncture, which would greatly weaken the Blizzard Silver City's strength. In fact, the Shao family might even think of using the Han family as cannon fodder to exhaust the Jun family's strength as much as possible. However, when Han Yen Meng entered the hall, Jun Moxie, who had been hiding from her the entire time, took the initiative to greet her. His attitude was exceptionally warm. "Ah. Isn't this Miss Han? I haven't seen you for a few days, and you've become more and more beautiful. TSK, I wonder when Miss Han will tie my little wife to my bed? I've been looking forward to it every day. I've been looking forward to it from the stars and the moon, and I've been looking forward to it ever since. So, you should hurry up and make it happen." Han Yen Meng's face turned red. She was so ashamed that she almost wanted to run away. There was no need to mention the regret in little Princess Han's heart. She really shouldn't have bet with this guy that day. This guy is too treacherous. He had already dug a trap for me to jump into. But, I was so stupid that I thought that I had succeeded. And, I had even jumped into the trap with a triumphant attitude. Then, I found out that I had unknowingly lost myself to him, and had become his little wife. And, she had even taken an oath. And, the most terrible thing was that she had taken an oath with the highest honor of the Blizzard Silver City. And, she even had to tie herself up and send her to his bed. This is really embarrassing. Little Princess Han Yen Meng was at a loss. Her lips were trembling, her head was lowered, and her face was red. She didn't dare to look at anyone, and didn't have the slightest trace of her usual arrogance and craftiness. As her future brother-in-law, Jun Wui felt a little distressed, and hurriedly called out to her. The little girl sat down awkwardly. She lowered her head and sat for a while. After making sure that there was nothing wrong, she mustered up the courage to raise her head. Her pretty face was as red as a monkey's butt. But, when she saw that Jun Moxie wasn't paying attention, she fiercely glared at Jun Moxie. Jun Moxie turned around and immediately shouted, "How can you be like this? The bet is already over, but you don't want to fulfill it. You're willing to bet, but you don't want to admit defeat. And, you still dare to glare at me. Quick, where's my little wife? I want her tonight. Hurry up and tie her up for me. Humph, don't forget your oath." I'm not glaring at you." The little girl's eyes were filled with tears, and she hurriedly tried to explain. "I don't care. In any case, I want my little wife tonight. You have to do it anyway. You promised me at the beginning." Jun Moxie smiled evilly. He looked at her with a proud expression and said, "It's so comfortable. I can consummate my marriage with my little wife tonight. It's really fascinating to think about it. No wonder everyone says, it doesn't matter if you're rich or not. Marry a wife and celebrate the new year. This is the truth. Consummating your marriage with your little wife on the eve of the New Year's Eve is a perfect example of double happiness." Han Yen Meng's eyes turned red, and she burst into tears. Her small mouth opened wide, and she cried in a heartbroken manner. Jun Wui and Mu Shuetong hastily tried to console her. But, they knew the whole story. So, they rebuked Jun Moxie. Jun Dashao spread out his hands with an innocent look on his face. What little wife? Dugu Xiaoyi suddenly became vigilant. She looked at Jun Moxie with her big bright eyes. Brother Mo Xia, where did you get this little wife? How come I don't know who she is? I want to go and see. The little girl's face was full of murderous intent. Jun Moxie's scalp went numb. He had been trying to take advantage of her just now. How could he have forgotten about the situation in front of him? Then, he turned around, and saw that Guan Qinghan was also listening attentively. His mother, Dong Fong Wen Xian, was also very concerned and had come over. Heavens, I was only saying that. Young Master Jun felt as if he had lifted a rock and smashed it on his own feet. What's going on? Dong Fong Wen Xian sat down, and asked his son with great interest, which family's girl is it? When did you get a little wife? Actually, it's like this. Jun Moxie saw that Han Yen Meng was in Mu Shuetong's arms, and didn't dare to raise her head. So, he lowered his voice and explained. It seems that these three women won't let me off if I don't explain things clearly today. Dugu Xiaoyi giggled and trembled. You're saying that she pestered you to make a bet. Then, she dug a pit for herself. She lost herself to you, and became your little wife? Isn't this too creative? Jun Moxie's face turned bitter. He helplessly spread out his hands. That's the whole process. In fact, I felt very helpless. Who doesn't know that you're a cunning schemer? Guan Qinghan snorted. Her tone was quite unkind. Maybe you saw that the little girl was pretty, and your heart was already moved. So, you use this as an excuse to set up a trap. I'm innocent. I'm innocent. I'm such a pure, upright, and noble gentleman. How could I do such a thing? Jun Moxie's words made the entire hall burst into laughter. If this kid can be described as pure, upright, and noble gentleman, then everyone in the world is a saint, so, that's how it is. Dong Fong Wen Xian beamed with joy. You're my son. You're really good at picking up girls. But, little Meng is too pitiful. She carelessly lost herself. Dugu Xiaoyi came back to her senses. She pouted and said, she tied herself to the bed. I thought that I was stupid enough. But, I didn't expect that this little girl is even more stupid than me. Today, I've learned something new. Everyone looked at her with a look that said, you finally know that you're stupid. Then, the hall roared with laughter. But, this girl is the same age as Han Yen Meng. How dare she call Han Yen Meng a little girl? Amidst the laughter, Dong Fong Wen Xian simply pulled Han Yen Meng into her arms and comforted her softly. Then, she suddenly said, actually, little Meng, when you send your concubine over, just tie her up lightly. Don't tie her up too hard, or it will hurt. She's my daughter-in-law. I'll feel sorry for her. Do you hear me? Don't be so careless. Han Yen Meng opened her eyes wide. She didn't expect Jun Moxie's mother to see this matter as well. She couldn't help but feel unhappy. She twisted her buttocks in Dong Fong Wen Xian's arms and said, I don't care. Sister-in-law, you're also bullying me. You have to stand up for me. Don't let your son bully the elders anymore. Why are you still calling me sister-in-law? Dong Fong Wen Xian frowned and pretended to be annoyed. You've already become my son's concubine. You can't call me sister-in-law anymore. Don't act like an elder anymore. Han Yen Meng became even more embarrassed. She rubbed her head in Dong Fong Wen Xian's arms and refused to raise her head. Jun Mo Xia was also dumbfounded. What's wrong? Why does mom seem to take it seriously? I'm going to faint. How can it be like this? At this moment, Dugu Xiaoyi also hugged Dong Fong Wen Xian's shoulders and announced loudly, Auntie, I'm your legitimate daughter-in-law. I've been waiting for so many years. You can't break us up. And Sister Qinghan, she's the real deal. What's done is done. The others have to wait. Everyone was sweating profusely. This little girl's valiance really made people gasp in amazement. Chapter 639. Dong Fong Wen Xian laughed heartily and pulled Guan Qinghan into his arms. With a face full of smiles, he said, it's all the same, all the same. Ha ha ha, this time, I can only wait to hold my grandson, ha. In Jun Moxie's small courtyard, Yi Guhan sat alone on a stone bench, humming an unknown sad song. His expression was deep and lonely, but his eyes were burning with passion as he looked at the stone table in front of him. There were words written on it. At the moment of family reunion, Yi Guhan sat alone, using a knife in his left hand to carve a name on the stone table in front of him. Shou shou, shou shou, shou shou. The fragrance of wine filled the air from all directions. Yi Guhan smiled miserably, threw away the knife, grabbed the jar of wine at his feet, raised it, and poured it into his mouth. His Adam's apple moved up and down as he swallowed, but his eyes were still fixed on the name on the stone table. Finally, the wine was finished, and he was drunk. Yi Guhan gently pressed his cheek against the stone table. He pressed his cheek against the ice-cold handwriting, and silently roared, "Shou shou." A stream of tears flowed out silently, dripping onto the stone table, right where the name Shou shou was carved, slowly condensing into a piece of ice. In comparison, although the Jun family was the one who made the announcement, they were also the one who completely stirred up the world. It could be said that they were the initiators. A single announcement from Jun Moxie had instantly thrown the world into chaos, making the already complicated world even more chaotic. But the Jun family, the initiator of all this, was probably the most relaxed one. At least, the other families were in a state of unease. In the imperial palace, His Majesty, the Emperor, was facing a table of extremely luxurious food and wine. His brows were tightly knitted, and he did not even have the mood to lift his chopsticks to try the food. The rise of the Jun family was unstoppable. In fact, it was progressing at a rapid pace. Back in Tianxiang City, they were just an ordinary aristocratic family. So what if they had the reputation of one family, 4 military gods, 3 generations and 6 marshals? They were just officials. It was just an empty title. But now, they actually dared to say in front of the entire world, "Those who follow me will prosper, and those who oppose me will perish." This was undoubtedly the most naked provocation to the imperial family. If he didn't have enough confidence, how would he dare to make such an unbridled threat to the entire world? The Emperor of Tianxiang didn't want to admit it, but he had no choice but to admit that the Jun family wasn't something that the Emperor could control anymore. In fact, the current imperial power had to rely on the Jun family. Last time, the second prince had been scared to the point of incontinence at the gates of Tianxiang City. Jun Moxie hadn't done anything to hide it, and had directly led the 2 troublemakers back to the Jun family. Afterwards, he hadn't even given an explanation, as if nothing had happened. His Royal Highness was injured by a guest of the Jun family, but the Jun family didn't even give an explanation. It was as if such a thing had never happened before, and it went against the rules of the Emperor and his subjects. But the imperial family actually just let it go and let it go, just like that. In fact, even if the imperial family didn't want to let it go, and wanted to pursue the matter, what could they do? Even if they forcefully pursued the matter, the result would only be worse. Who in the world didn't know that the Jun family's 3rd young master, Jun Moxie, wasn't a reasonable person? He dared to kill a living person in broad daylight. Who didn't know that the Jun family's strength had reached an unimaginable level? Even the great masters, and those above the great master level, had to come and go alive. Today, the Jun family was second to none in the world. Even if they faced the formidable strength of the 3 Holy Lands, they could still force them to return in defeat, let alone others. So what if it was the imperial power? The imperial power, which was supreme in the eyes of ordinary people, was no longer in the eyes of the Jun family. Thinking of this, the Emperor closed his eyes sadly, raised his neck, and gulped down a full cup of wine, choking and coughing. This originally sweet wine was so bitter when it entered his mouth, and it was difficult to swallow. Originally, any country would be happy and fortunate to have a super family like the Jun family emerge in it. Because, with such a colossus overseeing it, they could intimidate everyone for at least a few hundred years. Although such a family wouldn't directly participate in invasions, they wouldn't allow enemies to invade their country. Such a family was a powerful protective talisman for a country. But now, for the Emperor of Tianxiang, this protective talisman had become a fatal poison. It was the most lethal and life-threatening poison. Jun Wu Hui ah. Isn't this all for you? A face appeared in front of the emperor's eyes, dignified with wisdom, and calm yet sharp eyes. There was generosity and benevolence in his decisiveness to kill, and there was indifference and confidence in his disdain. The god of war, Jun Wu Hui. The general in white. Do I regret it? Do I regret it? If I didn't make that decision back then, wouldn't the Jun family be my greatest help now? His Majesty shook his head bitterly. I don't regret it, yes, I don't regret it. I would still choose to do the same thing if I could do it all over again. Because I am the emperor. I will never allow such a thing to happen. Since the emperor has no regrets, I also have no regrets. It's just that fate makes fools of people. Winner takes all, this is nothing more than that. His Majesty swallowed that mouthful of wine with difficulty, as if he had drunk all the flavors of life. I don't regret it. It's useless to regret it. Jun Moxie, I want to see how long you can endure. Thinking of Jun Xia, His Majesty the Emperor thought of the last effort he had put in. That day, after the banquet where Jun Wui had adopted Guan Qinghan as his daughter, the Emperor had a long talk with Jun Zhantian. Recalling that long talk, the Emperor's lips curled into a bitter smile. Brother Jun, you and I haven't had such a good drink for a few years. It seems that your tolerance for alcohol hasn't decreased at all, in fact, it's even better than before. His Majesty still used the title they used when they were conquering the world together, but it seemed like he hadn't used it for a long time. Your Majesty is too kind, this old man is already old and no longer the same as before, ha. When Jun Zhantian spoke, His Majesty could clearly hear it. Jun Zhantian called himself old man, but not old subject. This clearly showed the choice in Jun Zhantian's heart. Brother Jun, what are you talking about? You are indeed old but vigorous. His Majesty pretended not to hear it, and spoke of the purpose of this banquet under the cover of his drunkenness. Brother Jun, half a year ago, you mentioned to me about the marriage of 2 children. Today, I will ask again shamelessly, is it possible for Raimu and Xie? Regarding the marriage, this old man can't make the decision for Xie now. Let's not talk about the distant matters, let's talk about Qinghan. In order to save that bastard, she made such a big sacrifice. How can our Jun family let her down? Also, there is the apple of the Dugu family's eye, it has caused a huge uproar. How could Xie be a match for Princess Ling Meng, a woman of heaven's pride? Grandpa Jun politely declined. Although his tone was tactful, there was no leeway for him to change his mind. Miss Qinghan has sacrificed a lot for Xie. She is indeed a woman of great wisdom and courage. Naturally, she is a good match for Xie. She should be the first choice for the first wife. Naturally, I will not separate them. I believe that Raimu will not mind. If Xie is willing to treat her as a co-wife. His Majesty hadn't finished his probing speech when he was interrupted by Grandpa Jun. How can a dignified princess be a co-wife? How is this any different from being a concubine? Where would the face of the royal family go? Grandpa Jun spoke in a righteous and resolute manner. He even said that he was thinking for the sake of the royal family. Speaking of which, it was really ironic. Every dog has its day. Only half a year had passed. Half a year ago, Jun Zhantian had put down his pride and asked the emperor to marry off his daughter in order to preserve the last of the Jun family's bloodline. At that time, he had been mercilessly rejected. At that time, even he could imagine how embarrassed and desperate Jun Zhantian must have been. But just half a year later, it was his turn to taste this kind of embarrassment and despair. The subject of the conversation was still Jun Moxie and Princess Raimu. It was still about their marriage. But this time, Jun Zhantian was just like himself. He refused without any room for negotiation. The two people who were talking did not change. The content did not change either. The only difference was that the content was changed one by one. The original rejecter had become the one being rejected. The original requester had become the one being requested. Sure enough, every dog has its day. But, how could it take 10 years? In just half a year, the world had been turned upside down. That night, His Majesty the Emperor had lost all hope. From Jun Zhantian's expression, he already knew the result. The only thing he didn't know was how Jun Moxie would deal with him. But that was no longer important. It didn't matter anymore. In the palace, in another direction, the Empress and Princess Raimos sat facing each other without saying a word. New Year's Eve was supposed to be a night of reunion, but the Emperor and the Empress rejected the proposal at the same time. Both chambers were cold and cheerless, and there was a deathly stillness. During this period of time, Princess Ling Meng had become thinner day by day. Her eyes had become bigger, but her originally healthy and rosy face had now become dry and bloodless. She had become so thin that she looked like she was out of shape. Meng, don't torture yourself too much. There is no reason for the younger generation to bear the burden of the previous generation's affairs. The Empress's voice was particularly heavy. She patiently comforted her daughter. Relax, I will take care of everything for you. Princess Raimos shook her head slowly. Her eyes were listless as she looked at the flickering candlelight on the table. 2 drops of tears flowed down slowly. Mother, I don't want to bear this burden. I just feel bad. Bad? Why would you feel bad? Morong Xiao looked at her daughter in a daze. She was extremely surprised. Princess Raimos' face was sad. She murmured, Sin, this is the sin of my previous life. How did things turn out like this? How did it turn out like this? How did it turn out like this? Her usually beautiful eyes were devoid of any spirit, only endless confusion and sadness. Chapter 640. As soon as the words came out, even Morong Xiao herself felt that it was impossible. Her daughter had always thought highly of herself and looked down on all the men in the world, including Li Yuan. Although Jun Moxie's status was extraordinary and his strength was even more amazing, these amazing changes all happened in a very short period of time. Before that, Jun Moxie was just a complete debauchee. How could he enter her daughter's eyes? Moreover, the number of times they met each other could be counted on one hand. At most, they met occasionally when her daughter visited Yi Guhan. Other than that, they had no other contact, so it was really difficult to link them together. Princess Raimo opened her mouth and lowered her head, no. Although she denied it, it was particularly difficult for her to say it. Before the words left her mouth, a drop of tear fell on the back of her hand. That day, Uncle Yi was seriously injured and dying. Only Jun Moxie could save him. I begged in vain, so I had to make a blood oath. As long as he could keep Uncle Yi alive, then I am willing to marry him, to be his wife or concubine. There's such a thing. Although the Empress also knew that it was the Jun family who saved Yi Guhan who was seriously injured that day, she did not know the whole story. Especially since this was the first time she heard of this secret, she could not help but open her eyes in surprise. Princess Ling Meng's eyes were filled with tears. She looked at her mother with an indescribable bitterness. Mother, my heart is very bitter. It's very bitter. I only knew that Jun Imo Xia was the one who saved me. He was also the one who protected me. The mysterious knife-throwing master. It turned out that Jun Moxie's strength was already outstanding. At that time, he was already at the peak of Tian Xian. The Empress was so shocked that she was speechless. Since that day, I have been paying attention to every move of Jun Moxie. I did not let go of any information. I even took out all his previous bad behavior and analyzed them one by one. Mother, now I realize that I am really not as good as Xiao Yi. Xiao Yi can see the good in him, but I can't. I can't see it at all. Too many things were isolated from the inner court of the palace. No matter what they wanted to know, they could only rely on other people's mouths to tell them, and the truth was forever shrouded in a thick fog. We can't see through loyalty, treachery, virtue, and stupidity at all. The so-called good and bad character is also groundless and hard to judge. Princess Ling Meng smiled self-deprecatingly. Mother, I remember when I was young, you once told me that the imperial palace is the most glorious place in a country, but it is also the darkest place. It is also the most depressing place. At that time, you would often cry. I don't know why, but at that time, I felt that as the emperor's daughter, I had a noble status, far above ordinary people. How could I feel depressed? But now I finally understand that the palace is not just what you said, it is also the most hypocritical and filthy place in the world. The people who live in this palace are basically a bunch of fools. No matter how smart a person is, once they enter this place, they will eventually become a fool. So much so that they can't even control their own future. They live their whole lives in hypocrisy and lies, unable to see the truth at all. Mother, this is such a sad thing. The Empress stared blankly at the flickering candlelight and sighed deeply. The candlelight flickered in her eyes like a once-beating dream. As her daughter spoke, she once again thought of the past that she thought she had long forgotten, that lofty and unyielding young man and that pure and beautiful young girl, the sunshine of spring, the fragrance of autumn flowers, the mossy path that they once walked side by side, and the warm embrace that they once snuggled up to. Unknowingly, her eyes were filled with tears. After a long time, she muttered in a mocking and disdainful tone, "Royal family? Glory? Dark, hypocritical, filthy, hee." Morong Xiu's voice was abnormally distant and deep, as if she was talking in a dream. Mother? Are you all right? Princess Ling Meng was startled by her mother's sudden outburst. She could not help but raise her teary eyes in panic and look at her mother in confusion. I'm fine. I'm just feeling a little emotional. The Empress smiled slightly and used the palest and weakest words to comfort her daughter. She was a bit distracted and after a moment, she lowered her head slightly. Using the shadow of the lamp, her tears slid down. She said quietly, "Continue." Mohu is listening. Yes, Mother. Take this Jun Moxie for example. Everyone only saw the surface of his debauchee behavior. They all said that this person is hopeless and that the Jun family is finished. If Grandpa Jun dies today, the Jun family will be destroyed the next day. One person said it, 2 people said it, and 100 people said it. Jun Moxie's reputation as a debauchee was built up. Now that I think about it, weren't those people who said it all gloating over the misfortune of the Jun family and adding insult to injury? If Jun Moxie had really shown his talent since he was young, then he would have been long gone from this world. Princess Raimu said sarcastically, at least my father couldn't tolerate it. He couldn't tolerate the rise of another Jun Wuhui, right? Even more so, an existence even sharper than Jun Wuhui. And he couldn't tolerate such a person coming to seek revenge. Using a tone that was beyond her age, she said in a low voice, I finally know why Jun Xia was willing to sacrifice his own feathers. Now that I know what happened in the past, I can imagine how much suffering Jun Xia had to endure all these years. I'm about the same age as him, but the difference between our experiences is like the difference between the heavens and the earth. In the past, I thought that I was extremely intelligent and talented. But I was nothing compared to Jun Moxie. The difference was like heaven and earth. In fact, there was no point in comparing them. My childish thinking in the past was not only ridiculous, but it was also very sad. Now, his wings are fully fledged, and he has risen in one fell swoop. He doesn't need to hide anymore. In just a short span of half a year, the Jun family has become a super aristocratic family that no one can shake. The bad habits from before have also disappeared. Jun Moxie's name is like a spring thunder, and it shakes the world. The sad thing is that we only understand it now. And the world has only understood it now. But it's already too late. The expression on Princess Raimu's face became more and more sad. But there was also some pride on her face. In fact, it's not surprising. Because, he doesn't need to endure it anymore. And, he doesn't need to pretend anymore. Jun Moxie is a man, a real man. Mother, I even feel that Jun Moxie is not inferior to his father, Jun Wu Hui. What's there to say? You've already fallen in love with him. Otherwise, why would you speak in such a tone? The Empress sighed deeply, but, Meng, how did you fall in love with Jun Moxie? Haven't you always looked down on him? Is it because of a vow? Isn't that too childish? Marrying him and falling in love with him are two completely different things. This is a dead knot that can't be untied. There's absolutely no hope. Meng, what do you want me to say? It's because I hate him that it's easy to change, right? Princess Rima's expression was somewhat perplexed. Mother, do you know this kind of feeling? What you thought was just a small character crawling on the soles of your feet turned out to be a giant dragon that soared above the 9 heavens and ruled over all living things on earth. When a person that you don't even want to look at turns out to be someone you've misunderstood and wronged. What kind of feeling is this? She smiled sadly and said, ever since I knew that I've misjudged him, I've been collecting all the information about him. I've tried to infer his true intentions and motives from everything he's done in the past and everything he's said to me. Then, I've considered the Jun family's situation and the general in White's enmity at that time. I've realized that everything he's done has a deeper meaning. Every word he's said has been carefully thought out to suit the environment and atmosphere at that time. Mother, this is wisdom. Jun Xia is fully deserving of being a real man. A real man. It's easy for a person to drag out an ignoble existence, but it's difficult to endure humiliation. It's just a quick move to die for justice, but it's too difficult to silently endure and even cooperate with other people's contempt. He has peerless talents, but he treats himself like a clown for the sake of his family and hatred. It's too difficult. At least, I can't do it. I can't bear so many supercilious looks, so Jun Moxie is even more noble. So, as I investigated, I slowly fell into it bit by bit. Just like that, I fell into it. Empress Mother. A man like this is the man of every woman's dreams. How could I be an exception? It's not about the blood oath, I've already treated him as the only man I've acknowledged in this life. Princess Rima said faintly, but when she raised her head stubbornly, her face was filled with tears. I know that there's no hope, not even a little bit. Because of this, I said it out loud. Ever since Father mentioned it to me, I knew that there was no possibility between me and him. How can he accept me? But I can't accept it. I really can't accept it. I really can't accept it. Mother. I can't accept that my feelings are gone with the wind. She cried out bitterly. Back then, everyone was trying to deceive me, everyone was badmouthing Jun Moxie in front of me. Old Duke Jun came to propose marriage, but was rejected by Father. Although I wasn't willing at that time, but if I had known the truth earlier, I would have agreed to it. I would have tried to atone for Father's sins. I would have repaid for the sins we've committed. Even if he doesn't accept it, I was once his wife after all, and I also had him. Do you know, ever since I found out about the suffering he had gone through, my heart ached. Every time after the investigation, I want to hug him in my arms and comfort him. As a man, it's not easy for him. No matter how strong a man is, there will always be a moment of weakness. I really want to be the one to accompany him at that moment. Chapter 641. Sigh. The Empress sighed deeply and looked at her daughter. Suddenly, a heartfelt sense of powerlessness welled up in her heart. Do we have the same fate as mother and daughter? Or is Meng, or even more unfortunate than me? I still have a Han's attachment. At least I have loved him, but Meng has unrequited love from beginning to end. It's so pitiful. Murong Xiao quietly pondered for a long time. She slowly stood up and looked at her daughter lovingly. She paced back and forth a few times. Suddenly, an indescribable fierceness and madness burst out in her eyes. From the side, the gentle and beautiful face of the Empress, the dignified face of the Empress, seemed a bit ferocious at this moment. My life has long been ruined, completely ruined in the hands of that man. Do I have to watch my own daughter's life also be ruined in his hands? She is my only daughter, and also the source of all my blood and sweat. She thought silently, and the look in her eyes became more and more tragic and crazy. I have to work hard for my daughter. Even if I can't succeed, at least I have done my best as a mother. She was so excited that she gasped violently. This gasp sounded as if she was tearing her throat. It was so hysterical. Mother? Princess Raimu looked up worriedly. It's okay. It's really okay. The Empress lowered her head, as if she didn't dare to let her daughter see the fire in her eyes. She just slowly waved her hand and said, "Don't think about it anymore. It's getting late. Go back and rest." The Empress' heart seemed to shatter as she watched her daughter obediently and sadly disappear from her line of sight. Gritting her teeth, her cheeks puffed up as she finally made up her mind. She stood up and refused to be served by the palace maids. She put on a coat and suddenly said coldly, "Call for a sedan chair, I want to leave the imperial palace and go to the June family." "Your Majesty, it's already late at night." The maid looked at her in fear. "Didn't you hear what I said?" The Empress glared and said loudly. This was the first time she had spoken in such a harsh tone since she entered the palace. "Yes, this servant will go." The palace maid was so scared that she almost collapsed to the ground and hurried out. The Empress laughed self-mockingly. Hearing the footsteps outside, she suddenly tightened her collar and walked out without hesitation. When she walked out of the palace gate, a black shadow flashed out from the darkness like a phantom and followed her step by step like a shadow. "Ah, Jiao, where are the new guards on duty now?" Before the Empress got on the sedan chair, she asked in an extremely indifferent tone. "I heard he wasn't on duty." They were all in the Imperial Guard camp and formed their own brigade. That group of people were all very arrogant, and their skills were also very good. Usually, I don't see them do anything, but recently, they've been quite well behaved. The shadow-like Ajio pondered for a moment before replying cautiously. You've only started behaving since half a month ago, right?" The Empress asked indifferently with a hint of mockery in her eyes. Half a month ago was the time when June Moxie had returned to Tianxiang City. "Yes, and they've been in the 3 battalions since then." "They haven't come out, no one has come out," Ajio replied carefully. He didn't dare to look at the Empress' face because he could hear the gloominess and bloodthirst in the Empress' tone. "Ah, the blood sword hall was behind the Yi family's massacre, wasn't it?" The Empress lowered her voice and asked. "Yes, but almost everyone in the capital knew about it at the time." "So, it wasn't a secret at all," Ajio replied in astonishment. Only then did he realize that the Empress had already boarded the carriage. The wind was cold, and it was already the latter half of the night. There were no stars or moon as the carriage rolled out of the palace gate. "What did you say? The Empress went to the June family at a time like this?" The Emperor frowned. His face was frighteningly gloomy. He had drunk a lot of wine, and his head was drooping weakly. But, he suddenly raised his head as soon as he heard these words. His eyes shot out a hawk-like gaze. Fierce and cruel. "Yes." The guard knelt on the ground, and didn't dare to raise his head. "I know. You can go now." The Emperor leaned back, and closed his eyes tiredly. His fingers gently rubbed the space between his eyebrows. The ruthless look on his face became more intense, and his breathing became more rapid. He murmured, "She went to the June family at a time like this? Why? Why? Why?" The more he thought about it, the more panic flashed across his face. Then, a hysterical look emerged on his face. He roared in a low voice, "Why can't I go at a time like this? Why are you going now? Are you trying to sell me out? Murong Xiao Xiao, I've tolerated you for a long time. For a long time." He roared loudly. The alcohol had eroded his eyes into a blood-red color, and he looked ferocious. Then, he suddenly said decisively, "Someone. Ask Mr. Wen to come here. Brother Wen, I want to ask you to do something for me. Please." The elegant Mr. Wen had a smile on his face. He had just arrived, and the emperor had already made a request. How could I dare? What's the matter? Oh, this old man has come here today to inform His Majesty of something. Mr. Wen smiled as he looked at the emperor. Mr. Wen also has a matter? Please speak first, Mr. Wen. His Majesty had a smile on his face. But the muscles on his dignified face were faintly twitching. His 3 strands of beard were also trembling slightly. His eyebrows were brimming with murderous intentions. This old man will leave the Tianxiang Imperial Palace tomorrow, and return to the Great Golden City. I won't be the only one returning this time. The entire Xian continent's people who have been stationed in the various imperial palaces will be withdrawn starting tomorrow. We won't meddle in worldly affairs from now on. Mr. Wen said with a smile. This old man will leave the Tianxiang Imperial Palace tomorrow, and return to the Great Golden City. I won't be the only one returning this time. All the people who have been stationed in the Xian continent's imperial palaces will be withdrawn starting tomorrow. We won't meddle in worldly affairs from now on. We won't meddle in any form or by any means. Mr. Wen said with a smile. What? How? His Majesty suddenly stood up. He looked at the man in front of him in disbelief. He couldn't believe his own ears. I'm sorry, but it's true. Mr. Wen said in a serious tone. His indifferent words had thoroughly shattered the emperor's last shred of hope. Why has such a decision been made so suddenly? I asked Mr. Wen to explain clearly. His Majesty slowly sat back down. His face exposed a trace of bitterness as he asked in a low voice. I don't know about this. This decision has been made by the highest level of the Golden City. I'm powerless to do anything about it. Mr. Wen looked at the man in front of him. Your Majesty, you, take care of yourself. Take care of yourself. What do I need to take care of myself? His Majesty chuckled. His face was full of loneliness. He slowly shook his head and said in a low voice, I've been governing the country cautiously and conscientiously. I've been handling official affairs day and night. I'm afraid that I've been handling them more than I had in the past few years. I don't have much time left. So, I'll naturally do my best to handle them well. I'll go and have a drink with Jun Wu Hui, right? Wrong? This is ridiculous. Ha ha ha. He was laughing, but his eyes didn't have the slightest hint of a smile. Instead, they were filled with sorrow. The Crown Prince? Mr. Wen frowned. Mr. Wen, it's time to leave. So, let's decide on the successor today. The first prince will be the Crown Prince. His Majesty sighed deeply. A look of powerlessness flashed in his eyes. He's the only one among the 3 princes. The other 2 are unworthy. Your Majesty, are you worried that Jun Moxie will take revenge? Mr. Wen asked. Mr. Wen, do you think that Jun Moxie won't take revenge? Or, will he never find out the truth? His Majesty asked back. Paper can't wrap up fire. So what if he can't find any evidence? Does he still need any evidence? Mr. Wen smiled and said in a heavy tone. Brother Wen, I believe that after you leave this time, the 2 of us will never have the chance to meet again in this lifetime. His Majesty's words were extremely sorrowful. He turned his head and looked at the dark night outside. Then, he slowly said, You and I have been living together for so many years. We may not be brothers, but we are like brothers. How can Brother Wen bear to leave? Mr. Wen became silent for a long time. Then, he sighed and said, Actually, I don't want to leave. You haven't treated me as an emperor in these years. I've been indebted to you. But, I don't know how to repay you. Brother Wen, I want you to do something for me. His Majesty suddenly raised his head. His eyes were filled with madness. His murderous intention flickered in them. You'll leave tomorrow. Just take it as a parting gift to me before you leave. Please. Please speak, Your Majesty. I've been living in the Imperial Palace for so many years. And, I've been feeling very restless. I'm about to leave. So, I'll feel a little relieved if I can do something for Your Majesty. Mr. Wen was silent for a moment. Then, he resolutely replied. The Empress left the palace a moment ago. She went to the Jun family. His Majesty's voice was hoarse. It was mixed with deep pain and helplessness. She has been in a cold war with me all this time. She looked at me as if she was looking at an irreconcilable enemy. I've put up with her for 18 years. And, she's going to the Jun family at this time. And, she's going to the Jun family at this time. The Emperor of Tianxiang, Yang Huayu's voice sounded like that of a wounded beast. He was growling in a low voice. His face had become extremely distorted. He had become extremely ferocious. His hands were tightly clenched into fists. 18 years. I've put up with her. I've loved her crazily. I've been infatuated with her. But, I've never been able to get even the slightest bit of her sincerity. I've been guarding this shell of mine. But, I've never been able to get anything more. From the beginning to the end, I, the ruler of a nation, can't even compare to that traitorous bastard Yi Guhan. His Majesty made threatening gestures as he roared. He suddenly grabbed the wine cup. But, it was already empty. So, he threw it aside in annoyance. Then, he picked up the wine pot and gulped it down. Chapter 642. Bang! The jug of wine fell on the table, and issued a crisp sound, and now, she has left me for the Jun family. The Jun family, what kind of place is that? Everyone there wants me dead. They all want me dead. And she has gone there on the eve of the New Year's Eve. The blue veins on his forehead bulged and throbbed. He took a few deep breaths, and finally burst out, moreover, Yi Guhan is waiting for her there. He's waiting for her in agony. Mr. Wen remained silent. He couldn't meddle in the secret affairs of the imperial family. In fact, he didn't want to meddle in them. The only thing he could do was to listen. Right now, His Majesty lacked someone to listen to him. Therefore, he played the role of the emperor faithfully. My life is coming to an end, and it could be extinguished at any time. That brat Jun Moxie will never let me off. The emperor was panting heavily as a look of madness flashed in his eyes. He was pacing back and forth in the room. He didn't have the grace and dignity of the past. In fact, he looked like a lion that had been locked in a cage, impatient and furious. Kill her. He suddenly stopped, stood still, and spat out these words from between his teeth. His eyes were bloodshot. Mr. Wen was horrified. He raised his head, and looked at the Tianxiang Empire's emperor in disbelief. This man had obviously been tortured to the point of collapse. Kill her. The emperor repeated. But, his words were even clearer this time. His eyes flashed with a cold, cruel light. In fact, it seemed as if he had personally destroyed the thing he loved the most. He fixed his eyes on Mr. Wen, and suddenly took 2 steps forward. Then, he grasped Mr. Wen's shoulders tightly, and spoke in a desperate voice, "Brother Wen, please help me kill this slut." Mr. Wen was shocked speechless. The emperor had asked him to do one last thing before he left. And, that one thing was to kill his empress. He had killed a woman whom he had loved to death just a moment ago. In fact, he had fallen madly in love with her. What a preposterous thing this was. Why? Mr. Wen's voice sounded dry and hollow. Why? Ha ha ha. His Majesty looked up to the sky and laughed maniacally. He said loudly, since ancient times, the winner has always been king and the loser has always been in the wrong. If the Jun family didn't rise, then the Jun family would have naturally died out in Tianxiang. And, the wealth left behind by the Jun family would have naturally belonged to the nation. When that time comes, I will no longer have to worry about someone trying to usurp the throne, nor will I have to worry about my reputation as a god of war. I will even have the strength to sweep through the world. With my great talent and bold vision, it is only a matter of time before I destroy Yutang and devour Xintian. But the heavens are making fools of me. The Jun family has produced Jun Moxie, and all my efforts have been wasted. Now that things have come to this, there's no point in saying anything more. I participated in the murder of Jun Moxie that day. It's understandable that Jun Moxie came to kill me to avenge his father. I don't blame him. No. Don't blame him. I hate him. Motherfucker, who is he? If Jun Wuhui died, then so be it. I am the emperor of Tianxiang. What right does he have to avenge me? Yang Huaiyu was drunk, and his words were incoherent. But, he still said fiercely, I am the emperor, and he is the subject. The emperor and the subject are like father and son. If the emperor wants the subject to die, the subject has no choice but to die. This is the norm. What right does the Jun family have to avenge me? Even if I kill him with my own hands, it's still the Jun family's glory. Revenge? Bastard! How can they take revenge on their own emperor? The Jun family is simply a family of bastards. He took a few deep breaths. Treacherous son of AB*TCH. But, the current Jun family is too strong. I believe that even Sir can't compete with them. So, I don't ask Sir to target the Jun family. But, Murong Xiu must die. She is my woman. My empress. Why should she meet her lover on New Year's Eve? She might even reveal my secret. She betrayed me to Jun Moxie. She has no choice but to die. How can she not die? He roared at the sky with his hands wide open. But, this is only your guess. It's not the truth. Wouldn't it be a joke if you killed your own empress just because of your suspicions? Mr. Wen frowned. It's not a guess. That's for sure. I'm sure. His Majesty's face was red. His eyes were ferocious as he panted, besides, she can't live even if it's just a guess. He paused for a while, and then suddenly roared, she is my most beloved woman. Just based on this, she deserves to die. He smiled maliciously, why should I keep my woman alive if I'm going to die at any moment? Leave her and her old lover to live happily ever after. Ha 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 ha. She's my woman for one day. She'll be my woman for the rest of her life. I'll take my woman with me even if she dies. No. I'll make her wait for me in the underworld. I won't be at ease. I won't be at ease even if she dies one day later than me. I'll dominate her forever even if I can't win her heart. I'm the emperor. The emperor of Tianxiang. How can I endure such humiliation? He suddenly raised his leg, and kicked the carved table in front of him. It crashed into the ceiling of the palace, and broke into pieces with a loud sound. So, she must die. She must die before me. Mr. Wen sighed sadly. His Majesty's jealousy and hatred had clearly gotten to his head. You had countless opportunities to kill her in this matter. So, why did you make me do it? Mr. Wen frowned in a helpless manner. I can't bear to do it. I can't bear to do it. How can I bear to do it? The Emperor roared furiously. It seemed as if he was very dissatisfied with his own weakness, she has never loved me. But, she's the only woman I've ever truly loved in my life. I wouldn't have thought of killing her if she hadn't gone to the Jun family today. Because, no one would have been able to keep me in a cold war if I had killed her. I would have been very lonely. Very uncomfortable. He suddenly rushed over and grabbed Mr. Wen's hand. "Brother Wen, help me. Help me this time. Kill her for me." He eagerly looked into Mr. Wen's eyes. "You'll be returning to the Great Golden City tomorrow. So, killing such a person will be as easy as blowing off dust for you. Then, you'll be able to escape to a faraway place after you've killed her. The June family won't be able to shake the Great Golden City even if they wish to pursue this matter, right?" Mr. Wen looked up to the sky and sighed. The expression on his face fluctuated. It was full of contradictions and entanglements. "Brother Wen, please help me this time." Tears flowed out of the emperor's eyes. But they were flashing with a crazed color. "I can't allow my woman to be held in the arms of another man. And I can't bear to see that scumbag Yi Gahan pressing her between his legs. Please help me, help us husband and wife. This is my last wish. And it's also the only request I'll make of you since we've known each other for a lifetime." "All right." Mr. Wen thought for a long time. Then, he finally agreed with great difficulty. It was obvious that this was a very painful decision for him. "I'll go. But I'll leave after I kill her. And I won't come back." "Thank you, Brother Wen." The emperor bowed deeply and said, "She has just left the imperial palace. So, she shouldn't have gone far yet. So, she shouldn't have reached the June family yet. Brother Wen, you should be able to make it in time. I'm counting on you. Now." Mr. Wen's eyes narrowed. "Now. Now." The emperor nodded deeply. "Good." Mr. Wen's thin face revealed a trace of anger. His calm and indifferent face twitched a little as he slowly said, "Wen Songyu, have lived an upright life. And I've never done anything wrong to anyone. But I'm about to leave this world forever. And the last thing I'm going to do is to kill a woman who has no enmity with me." In a dark corner outside the palace, a slender and graceful figure was trembling all over. Her eyes were filled with tears as she quietly retreated. She slowly moved out of the palace. Then, her body suddenly trembled as she tried to suppress her sobs. She frantically ran out of the palace. That person was none other than Princess Raimu. She had come out from her mother's place. But she remembered that she hadn't paid her respects to her father on New Year's Eve. So, she forced herself to come even though she didn't want to. Because she wanted to ask her father a question. "I want to ask him if he's willing to bow down to the June family. Is he willing to repent to June Wuhui?" In this young girl's dreams, as long as my proud father is willing to bow down to me, will this hatred be alleviated? Then, but as soon as he arrived here, he heard his father's loud roar. Finally, his curiosity was aroused. He quietly waved his hand to summon the guard over, and then asked him to leave. He stood in the position of the guard. Originally, he wanted to hear why his father was unhappy, but he didn't expect to hear such a thing. This was like a bolt from the blue for her. The imperial father that he had respected the most since he was young was actually going to kill his beloved imperial mother. This cruel reality almost made Princess Raimu faint on the spot. But she didn't dare to faint. In fact, she was afraid that she wouldn't be able to hold on. Because her mother was in danger. She had always thought that her father was dignified and benevolent. He doted on her. He was a good emperor and a good father. But she had seen her 3 brothers fight for the throne. And all of this was planned by her father. So, her view of him changed a little. Then, she found out about the death of Tian Xiang's white commander, Jun Wuhui. And her father had played an extremely dishonorable role in it. And a knot had formed in her heart. But Princess Raimu's heart had finally turned to ashes today. All of her hopes and fantasies had been destroyed. So, my father is such a person after all. He's extremely selfish, cruel, cold, paranoid, and a complete pervert. He killed my mother. And he hired someone to kill her. Such an unimaginable thing happened right in front of my eyes. A husband wants to kill his wife because of jealousy and suspicion. His most beloved woman. An emperor wants to kill the empress because he suspects that his woman will be enjoyed by someone else after his death. This is the most ridiculous joke in the world. Princess Ling Meng ran for quite a distance before crying out loud. She ran and cried until she reached the imperial stables. She tore off the reins of the horse and mounted it. She clamped her thighs together and whipped the horse's buttocks. She shouted at the top of her lungs, "Jia!" The horse neighed. Its front hooves left the ground. Then, it galloped forward like an arrow, piercing through the night sky of the imperial palace. "Who is it?" The guards at the palace gate shouted. "It's me. Open the gate." Princess Raima's eyes were filled with tears. "Yes. So, it's your highness." The guards hurriedly bowed and opened the palace gate. Princess Ling Meng exerted force on her leg, and the healthy horse let out a long neigh as it leapt forward like a cloud. It passed through several palace gates, and the sound of its hooves was like a sudden clap of thunder. In an instant, it had disappeared into the distance, leaving behind countless snowflakes. At the same time, a slender figure silently rose into the air from within the imperial palace. It flew over 70 to 80 feet in the air, and suddenly, like a huge flag being swept up by a gale, it unfolded in the air and disappeared without a trace with a whoosh. The emperor stood in front of the window. There was a proud and cruel smile on his face. "I left in a hurry last night, so I made a few mistakes. When I copied the chapter, I didn't know what happened. I copied it twice and clicked on the edit button, but it still went back. I repeated more than 90 words. The second mistake was that I wrote the wrong words in the chapter. Already updated became first updated. I was speechless. I just finished writing the chapter last night and was about to go to bed. Today, I went to cook for my uncle. Then, I got a call when I was uploading the chapter. My aunt couldn't take the blow and collapsed. Acute myocardial infarction. I finished the chapter in a few minutes and went home in a hurry. Luckily, she was saved in time. Now, she was out of danger." Sigh. I broke out in a cold sweat. I felt cold all over when I was walking on the road. I had a bad feeling. Let me explain briefly. There are 2 updates today. To make up for yesterday's repeated mistakes, I will give you 500 words for the first update. I hope my brothers and sisters can forgive me. All my brothers and sisters know that I usually give at least 100 words for free, or 300 or 200 words for each chapter. It's not for anything else. It's not that I don't like writing new chapters to earn money. I like money, really. But, I hope that I can use these words to make up for the punctuation in the main text. This reason might be funny or stupid, but I've been doing this for 2 years. Maybe I don't give much, but please believe that I've tried my best. I will try my best to make up for the punctuation in each chapter with free words. Chapter 643. Your Majesty, the princess's face was full of tears just now. She rushed out on her horse and was in a bad mood. We did not dare to stop her. The guard at the door came to report. "Raimu?" The emperor was startled. He suddenly sneered and said, "Both mother and daughter are going to abandon me to meet their lover? Haha, forget it, don't worry about her. Bring me wine. Today, I want to celebrate." Yes. The cold wind whistled through the air, and the dust-like snowflakes were blown up into the air, fluttering in the air. This was the most prosperous street of the Tianxiang city, but at this moment, it seemed somewhat eerie. Under the protection of 100 guards, a small yellow sedan chair, decorated with tassels and ribbons, moved forward at a steady pace. Murong Xiu's beautiful face flashed with hesitation and struggle. Do I really have to do this? The next moment, a lonely and desolate man seemed to appear in front of her, but his eyes that had been filled with despair for a long time were still affectionate and passionate. Little Han. A trace of heartfelt tenderness appeared on Morong Shou's face. Although she had never shown such an expression when she saw Yi Gahan, every time she heard his name in the dead of night, she would feel bitter in her heart. It was also because of this bitterness that she felt that she was still a person, and a woman at that. This deep affection had tortured the three of them for their entire lives. It became a nightmare and an eternal scar in the heart of Tianxiang Empire's Yang Huayu. It had also become an everlasting memory in the hearts of Morong Shou and Yi Gahan. In this quiet night, Morong Shou found herself strangely recalling too many things from the past. The deep feelings of the past, the solemn vows of eternal love, all of them were still vivid in her mind. It was as if on this short road, she was replaying everything in her life, no matter how big or small. Little Han, it's been hard on you. Morong Shou's face was full of tears. At this moment, she suddenly remembered a poem that Yi Gahan had left for her before he fled to the ends of the world. She could not help but smile miserably. She took out a plain white handkerchief from her bosom. On it, there were a few lines of small blood-red words embroidered in a flamboyant manner. I don't regret this life's deep affection, I'm willing to wander alone, I hate that lovers are only in dreams, I'd rather betray the heavens than you. After Yi Gahan left, Morong Shou embroidered this handkerchief and kept it close to her body. However, no one knew that this bright red handwriting was Morong Shou's own blood. She used her own blood to soak the white thread red. Then, she threaded the needle and, stitch by stitch, embroidered the last poem given to her by the person she loved the most on her handkerchief. It had survived until today. Just a few days ago, there were 2 more lines of words, the same bright red: if the fate in the next life has not ended, I would rather betray the heavens than betray you. These were the last 2 lines of the poem that Yi Gahan had recently revised. After Morong Shou finished embroidering these 2 lines, she embroidered another word below, looking forward to it. Little Han, not only are you looking forward to it, I'm also looking forward to it. If the fate in the next life has not ended, I would rather betray the heavens than betray you. If there is a next life, I will only belong to you. I will smile for you, cry for you, shed tears for you, rejoice for you, bear children for you, and grow old with you, even if I'm poor, even if I'm lowly. As long as you and I can be together, we'll not regret it. Little Han, the world is singing praises for Jun Wuhui and Dongfang Wen Xian. They are all feeling sorry for them and sympathizing with them. But who knows how much I envy them? Although they are separated by life and death, they have been husband and wife for more than 10 years after all. With such a relationship, he once had her, and she once had him. They are so happy. But we have never had each other, little Han, the man I love the most. Do you know, every time I see you, how sour my heart is, how painful my heart is. In the next life, Your Highness, the June residence is in front. The guard at the front of the carriage turned around and reported respectfully. When he spoke, Morong Shou had just finished recalling the ups and downs of her life. She was drifting in her thoughts as if she was in a fog. This sentence woke Morong Shou up from her dream. She lifted the curtain and looked outside. Her eyes were still misty. So fast. So fast. The guards were speechless. The road was snowy and slippery at night. We were so careful all the way, so how could we be fast? It was clearly slow. A gust of wind blew the snowflakes onto Morong Shou's face as she lifted the curtain. Suddenly, she shivered and had an ominous premonition. Was there no way ahead? Or has my road come to an end? At this moment, a hurricane suddenly rolled up right above her, and rushed towards the carriage with the force of a thunderbolt. There was a flash of light, and there was a sword in the hurricane. Be careful, Her Majesty! The guard cried out in horror. In the distance, the thunderous sound of horse hooves rolled over like a storm. To gallop on a horse in the middle of the night, when the ground was frozen like a mirror, was either a madman or a madman. Once they fell, they would either have their hands or legs broken, or die on the spot. It was simply a waste of one's life. A weak but hysterical cry could be heard in the wind. Imperial Mother! Be careful! Imperial Mother! Be careful! The voice was broken by the bone-chilling wind, but one could hear the infinite despair and panic in the voice. In the cold winter night, Princess Raima galloped madly on her horse. Her hair was disheveled, and the cold wind blew on her face, freezing the tears on her face. Murong Xiu also heard the guard's exclamation, saw the approaching hurricane, and vaguely saw a vague figure in the hurricane. The sound of horse hooves behind also entered her ears. She also heard her daughter's heart-wrenching cry clearly in the cold wind, but she suddenly found that she could not move, as if she had fallen into an ice cave. Under the shroud of such an earth-shattering Xian skill, she had no power to protect herself, and could only wait for death. But on her peaceful face, there was a trace of relief. Am I going to die? Ah! A wolf-like howl of despair rang out. Zhou's shadow-like figure suddenly appeared. He kicked the palanquin, and the entire palanquin rapidly retreated. At this moment, the advantage of the frozen ground was revealed, and it actually quickly slid out. Meanwhile, his skinny figure lit up with a bright yellow radiance. With a loud roar, he soared into the air and faced the hurricane in midair. The figure in the hurricane. The peak of Earth Xian. The Empress' personal guard turned out to be an expert at the peak of Earth Xian. However, the assassin was none other than Mr. Wen. He was a supreme master. Not to mention an Earth Xian, even a peak of Tian Xian could be killed in seconds. What was a mere peak of Earth Xian? But he still managed to stop him. Blood exploded in midair. Zhou's body had just rushed up when he instantly turned into a sky full of flesh and blood. Drops of blood fell like a rain of blood, falling one after another. But Mr. Wen's figure was faster than the rain of blood. He was like a demon god descending from the heavens, flying down from the sky. He was carrying a small package on his back. Once he killed Murong Xiu, he would immediately fly away and return to the Supreme Golden City. From then on, he would no longer be concerned about the mortal world. Protect the Empress. Dozens of guards stood in front of the palanquin with their swords. At this moment, Murong Xiu flipped over and rolled out of the palanquin, landing on the snow. At the same time, the palanquin was hit by the palm force and split into pieces. Mr. Wen did not say a word. He swung his sword and a ray of sword energy flashed out. The dozens of guards in front of him screamed as they were all cut in half. The sword energy penetrated their bodies and left a deep sword mark on the ground. Snowflakes flew everywhere. The sound of hooves approached. Princess Raima rushed over desperately. She jumped off the horse and almost fell down. She madly rushed to her mother who was lying on the ground and screamed, "Mother!" Mr. Wen's figure did not stop. He hesitated for a moment and then his right palm flew out with a bang. Even in the air, a black hole in the shape of a palm was formed and hit Murong Xiu's back. Stop! A ghostly figure appeared out of nowhere. His body had yet to arrive, but he had already unleashed a force to intercept Mr. Wen's palm wind. However, he was still a step too late. Although most of the force had been dissipated, there was still a strong force that hit Murong Xiu's back with a loud bang. Murong Xiu let out a muffled groan. Her delicate body was hit and flew off the ground. She spat out a mouthful of red blood in midair. She was like a flower that had been forcibly plucked from a branch and fell powerlessly from the sky. Her light yellow dress unfolded in the air like a delicate flower that had withered in the snowy night. Mother! Princess Ling Meng was frightened out of her wits and rushed forward. Seeing that it was too late, she leapt forward without any regard for her life. Her body fell heavily onto the ground, and with a "kacha" sound, her knees made contact with the hard ice and shattered. But she did not feel it. She just stretched out her hand and firmly caught her mother's body as if she was catching the only thing she could rely on in her life. Crack! The strong momentum caused Princess Ling Meng to fall backwards as she caught hold of her mother. Her knees, which were already broken, were still kneeling on the ground. Her entire upper body was bent backwards and the back of her head slammed heavily onto the icy surface of the snowy ground. A crisp sound came from her knees as she knelt on the ground. Fresh blood instantly flowed out. If one lifted her dress to take a look, they would definitely see that the joints of her knees were completely shattered. Her delicate skin and flesh had long been split open, and the pale white broken bones were also exposed outside. However, this girl who had been pampered since she was a child had revealed her extreme toughness at this moment. Even a spirit Xian expert wouldn't be able to endure such pain. However, this little girl had withstood it. Moreover, the back of her head had started to bleed profusely. However, she had held on to her mother's body, and hadn't let her mother's body suffer even the slightest impact. Morong Xiao opened her eyes with difficulty. She looked at her daughter who was in despair and sorrow with a trace of tenderness and affection on her face. She wanted to say, Meng, don't be afraid. I'm fine. But when she opened her mouth, she spat out a mouthful of blood again. This time, it was accompanied by pieces of internal organs. She wanted to raise her hand and wipe away the tears on her beloved daughter's face, but she found that she could not even move a finger. She could only endure the intense pain in her body, but she tried her best to look indifferent. She looked at her daughter with gentle eyes and tried her best to tell her, Mother is not in pain, really not in pain. You're tuning into the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.